Good morning, everyone. This is the Governor's Council hearing on the nomination of Danielle Williams to the District Court in the place she would be nominated from is Westfield District Court. So I'm going to, at this time, formally introduce the counselors who are here. Eileen Duff, Christina,
Good morning. How are you?
morning. And I understand Counselor Dubonville is here. Counselor Kennedy joined us and may have to leave for a few minutes. Counselor Dubonville is here as well.
Thank you.
And time, the governor has nominated to the position of the District Court Justice. And I'm going to ask if there's anyone here who is in favor of this nomination. I would note for the record that Representative Bud Williams joined today, and I believe you are here to speak in favor of this nominee. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
First of all, thank you, Governor's Council. Thank you, and to thank him for a great nomination, and to my dear Mayor Hurley, Judge Hurley, Governor's Council Hurley. I don't know what you want to be called by, Your Honor, but we'll go with all of the above.
Okay.
I want to thank you for your hard work on behalf of Massachusetts and Nevada in terms of getting jurists nominated to the bench. And we just want to honor you for your hard work. I know it isn't easy working the numbers from Eastern Massachusetts. And to this outstanding nominee that you have named, you put her name in nomination. I have had the pleasure of working with Danielle Williams when I was a probation officer, Springfield District Court, many years, and I see Carmen Peachy's on the phone. So it's like District Court home week for me. I worked 2007, and I retired shortly after that. And I'm going to tell you, she is always, first of all, her mother, who has always and used to carry her around under her arm when she was a very young lady working in the Springfield broader community. But I worked with Danielle, and I want to tell you, temperament, compassion, understanding really strikes me with her is her humility. I've watched her. I'm the probation officer. She was the assistant district attorney in many tough cases when we worked with Judge Boyle and Judge Beatty. Many tough cases in Springfield, as you might imagine. All types of cases coming through there. And she always had the same temperament, the same humility, and the same compassion. I have never, and she might have another side to her, I have never seen this young lady act out of order in terms of a facial expression. Just something that would say that she's having a bad day. Always same temperament, same understanding. And as I said, Springfield District Court, as we know, was the busiest court in the Commonwealth. Hundreds and hundreds of cases every single day coming through that trial court. So she'll make an outstanding jurist, understands the law, has worked very well in the community, helped start a charter school here in Springfield to broaden choices for individuals within our community. So I couldn't think of a better nominee. She's going to be an outstanding jurist. She's going to make women proud, especially African American women who now have something to look up to shoot at as a role model. And you too, Your Honor, I want to thank you for this great, great selection. She's going to be an asset to this criminal justice system. And I've been in that system over 30 years. I've seen a lot of judges come and I've seen them go. She's going
Thank
to be
you,
an
Bob.
outstanding jurist, career, and going to dispense justice. And Danielle, you call it like you see it, not how somebody else sees it. Good luck, my friend, your mom, good luck to her. And Judge Hurley, I want to thank you one more time, Your Honor. Outstanding, and you're working very hard in this community.
Thank you, Bud. Any questions of this witness?
I do, Judge. I do, Mary.
Yes, Bob.
I didn't get your name, sir.
Bud L. Williams.
State Representative Bud Williams,
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
former probation officer of the Springfield District Court who worked with Danielle.
Okay. And how long were you a probation officer?
Okay, what?
Hey, too long.
You said
30-some years.
Did you work with a fellow named Lunardini?
Oh, Lunardini, that's my Holyoke.
Yeah, that's my cousin. Hello? We lost him.
He's still there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So, John Lunardini, he's my cousin. He worked over there in probation years ago. Did you know John Lunardini? He's not hearing me.
I didn't.
All right.
We're all set on our side.
What was the
Okay.
question, Your Honor?
Did you know John Lunardini?
Great guy out of Holyoke, the great city. Worked
He
very
was
well.
Governor's Council Jubenville's cousin.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're,
I wouldn't
Jubenville
kid
is
you on that. I
Holyoke.
wouldn't kid you on that.
John was
When did
very close to John. We like basketball, and he's a great basketball
Yeah.
player back in Holyoke.
Yeah. When did you retire from the probation?
2008.
Well, I admire you going in a different direction after you retired and becoming a state rep. You got a great reputation out there. Thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you for your hard work that you do. John Lunardini was a great individual. We right, Peachy?
Absolutely.
Can't hear
Thank you.
Mary, just a comment, Terry Kennedy.
Yes, Counselor Kennedy.
Thank you, Councilor Hurley. A couple of things, Representative. First of all, thank you for coming before the council. A lot of times, members of the House come here and don't come back for some reason. I don't know why, but we appreciate you coming. I just want to say that I agree with everything you said about Councilor Hurley. She works very, very hard, and she's been a very strong advocate of this particular nominee. I disagree with one thing that you said, that the nominee, when she becomes a judge, is going to become a role model for women and African-American women. I think she already is one. And I think that, and I agree with you that that is very, very important. And she has a great reputation, as do you, Representative. Keep doing the good work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And you're pushing some great nominees out. You're working very hard. We love it.
Thanks,
Well, remember
Bud.
that after the budget crisis is over. Remember that at time. See you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Counselor Hurley,
Yes,
Counselor Hurley.
yes, Counselor Devaney.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask the witness just one question. What is the most outstanding adjective you could use to describe this nominee?
I think the word humility, being very humble, doesn't think too much of herself in terms of where she sits in society, and always been humble. And I think I've seen many great jurists, including Judge Hurley, on the bench. And I think that's one of the qualities that you have to have is the humility to understand individuals within life. And sometimes you get some very tough cases and people come from different in society. Some when you're in the district court, some very, very, poor individuals who have had, down on their luck. And sometimes you get on that bench and you're sitting up and you're looking down, basically, from an eagle's perspective. But I think she has the temperament to do an outstanding job. And I like that. I like the balance that she brings.
Thank you.
As I said in my
So
statement, I've worked in
have
the
you,
court, and you can get bombarded, as Judge Hurley will tell you, with cases, domestic abuse, assault cases, possession. And we used to do, 100, 200 arraignments. And she sat to the left, to the right of the judge, and I'm the probation. And I've never seen her expression change in terms of if she was having a bad day, I never could detect her facial expression and her demeanor was always the same. And I really mean that. And sometimes, I can get excited and but her temperament and humility, that's what I would like.
Thank you, Bud.
thank you. Tell me, you've gone before that, in that court many times. Is that your experience?
He was a probation.
I was a probation officer.
Okay, so you're a probation officer. So if you, so have you gone to court many times before with Counselor Hurley?
Sure.
Okay, so you know each other well. Okay, thank you. That's all I want to ask.
All right, our next witness will be the Honorable Justice John Payne. Payne, not Pain. You may be seated. You may
Can I
begin.
begin?
You may
Thank you.
begin. And I'd
Good
like to
morning,
welcome-
everyone.
Good morning.
My name is John Payne, as Councilor Hurley just indicated. I'm the presiding justice of the Springfield District Court, and I am here to speak in favor of this nominee, Danielle Williams, who I believe is an outstanding candidate and would make an outstanding jurist in the district court. She possesses the qualities and the characteristics of a person you would want as a jurist in the court, whether it is her intelligence, her professionalism, her competence, and most importantly, her integrity. I would agree with what State Representative Williams just indicated about the fact that she is a humble person, but I would stress her integrity. I've had an opportunity to know and observe Danielle for 17 years now. I first encountered her when she was a newly minted attorney in the district attorney's office in Hampden County. And one of the things that, as a district court judge, that over the last 20 years, I've had an opportunity to do and kind of enjoy at times, is to watch new attorneys begin their careers, and to watch them as they blossom into experienced practitioners and attorneys and members of the bar. And I certainly saw that with Danielle Williams. Every time that she appeared in front of me, from whether it was an arraignment, an evidentiary hearing, a bail argument, a trial in front of a jury or a bench trial, each time she came in, you noticed the fact that she was more polished, more professional, more competent. She was always a collegial individual. She was always very prepared. And it was a pleasure to watch her develop as an attorney. Over the last 4 or 5 years, she's been an assistant clerk magistrate in our court. And as State Representative Williams just indicated, the Springfield District Court is and has been for many years the busiest district court in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it is a tough place. It's a demanding place. It's a court that requires someone who is dedicated to providing justice for the citizens of this Commonwealth. And that's what I've watched her do in carrying out and handling any courtroom she's assigned to. And she does it with, again, with compassion and with humility, but she does it with a professionalism and a control that I think is most impressive. I have never seen her lose control of a courtroom she's been in. I have never seen her have to raise her voice. Her simple presence and appearance controls that courtroom. I would just indicate also, the COVID situation has caused disarray for all of us, and certainly in the courts that has been true. But one of the things that it has done, which I hope will be an unintended positive consequence, is it has brought the court system in many ways into the 21st century. We do things now with technology that we've never done before, and I'm not sure we would have done had it not been for the circumstances we are currently in. Danielle has taken to that responsibility and has become quite competent in dealing with the issues that surround the technology use that our courts are using today to carry out justice and will use in the future when things hopefully get back to a more normal pace. Danielle Williams today, right now, if she was sworn in as a judge, could walk into any district court in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and handle whatever session she was placed in. Again, she is an outstanding candidate for a judge. She will serve the district court, the trial court, and most importantly, the citizens of the Commonwealth who come in to use our court system in a way that will be outstanding. I, for one, as I am slowly ending my career on the bench, I will miss those days when she is not a clerk in a session that I am in, but I will be a joyous person with the fact that I can call her a colleague. And I urge this body to support this nomination and make Danielle Williams the newest member of the district court. I would be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Counselor Hurley?
Not sure she can hear you.
Any questions for this witness?
I do, Counselor Hurley.
Counselor Jubenville.
It's good to see you, Judge. I've seen you on the bench a bunch of times when I
Nice to
go
see you,
out there.
Counselor.
How long have you been sitting now?
Almost 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, huh?
Judge Hurley Judge Hurley keeps, I call her Judge Hurley, but, or Mayor Hurley, but Counselor Hurley keeps asking me when I'm leaving. She has plans, I think, for that position.
She has,
I've got you
there'd be a recall?
What's that?
There'd be a recall?
No, not as a recall. She's got plans to fill the position already, so,
So, the 20 years, so you've seen a lot of changes in the Springfield court.
yes, sir.
You mentioned the new technology we're using, Zoom, I suppose you use a lot out there?
Zoom, Polycom.
Yeah.
We're using both of those. We're doing much more on email with respect to documents and materials.
Right.
Oftentimes, the lawyers are not coming into the courtroom
Right.
for the most part.
Right.
So all of these are major changes that are taking place.
Yeah, and in talking to the chief and other chiefs, a lot of those things, I think you're right, we're going to be keeping. I, for one, like to go to courts. I love going to courts. I go all over the state, and I love being in a court because it's such a social experience in addition to the work you do as a lawyer.
Right.
So I miss that part of it. But I have to tell you, I had a couple of weeks ago, I had 4 court hearings, one in the Cape, one in Lowell, one in Boston, and one in Marlborough. And then before the pandemic, I would drive to every one of those courts, calling each one, telling them I'm going to be late. I did all of them from my office in about an hour and a half, which when you think about it is saving a lot of time doing that, although I miss going to the courts. But also I think it saves a lot of defendants from missing work by being able to have their lawyer on it and not sometimes having the defendants have to be on the Zoom or whatever it is.
You know, as I said, Counselor, this pandemic is obviously a terrible event, and you only hope that certain things that happen that you have to deal with have an unintended consequence of a positive nature. And I do think the fact that we have somewhat been dragged into the 21st century, that's not going to change. And I don't think lawyers, even though I agree with you, there's a great comfort in going into the courtroom, but I think lawyers are going to demand it. I think parties are going to demand it.
Sure.
And the technology is here to stay.
Well, I always used to think it kind of funny that I was told that on good days, about 20,000 people went into our court systems throughout Massachusetts every day. And about 90% of them went there at 9 o'clock. And within probably an hour, a half or 60 or 65% of them went home with a new date. And it just struck me as like, you know, people miss work, they go in for nothing, they get a new date, they go. And, you know, why we didn't ever have staggered times that the federal court uses. You go at 9,
Right.
some people come at 11, some people come at 2. We always seem to have that 9 o'clock call. And over the year when I first started 42 years ago, if your client wasn't there, a lot of judges would default them right away. Of course, that would go on their records, and you know what that can mean later on in life.
Sure.
But so, and I agree with you, but it was because we always did it that way for 100 years, or more than 100 years. So it takes some events like this, I think, to change a government structure, because it's hard to change government. It just seems to go along in the same vein. Are you doing trials now out there?
We are going to start, well, I think we've had a couple of bench trials, civil bench trials, which have been done remotely as well, interestingly enough. Our first criminal trials, we're going to have a couple of criminal trials on November 17th, and we're hopeful that that's
Jury?
going to, that's jury. We're bringing in jurors for the first time, and we're going to see how that works. They have to rearrange where the jurors are brought in, where they stay, how they're in panels, where they're in panels, where they deliberate. And so as much as we're hoping to accomplish justice by having these trials, we're also hoping to see exactly how this works, how we can make it work better, and where there may be some potential problems.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of jurors will say that they can't serve for COVID reasons, and they're afraid, or they have underlying conditions. Because even before this, there was always a group of jurors that would have excuses for not serving, some of it frivolous. But now I think you might have a problem getting jurors in. Do you sense that at all?
Well, I do, and as you're probably aware, we have the environmental issues in the Hall of Justice in Springfield,
Oh, yeah.
which add to some of those concerns. So I'm waiting to see what the response is going to be when those jury notices go out and as they start to filter back to the Office of Jury Commissioner.
Now, when you have those trials, the witnesses, I assume, will have to be in person.
I would think so. I mean, we haven't reached that point yet. We haven't picked the trials. What we're trying to do, Counselor, is to get a couple of trials that we know are basically fairly straightforward. There are no outstanding issues. Basically, one or two witness trials, so that when we bring the jurors in, we impanel them right away. We can finish the case that day, and when it's time to go home, the jurors are done with their service completely. And so my sense is, I would certainly expect the witnesses, a complainant or a police officer, to come into court, and obviously the defendant. We haven't gotten to the point whether we're going to start waiving some of these things yet, but again, everything is new today.
Yeah. But I mean, if I'm representing a defendant in a criminal matter, I don't think I could go forward with a witness on a video.
I would feel the same way.
I mean, you don't have the same interaction. You don't get to see the witness testify and how they testify.
The jurors can't make that determination either.
Right, or a judge on a judge trial.
Right, exactly,
couldn't make
yeah.
it. And you never know where the witness is. Are they home reading a police report, or are they somewhere in somebody else's office helping them with the answer?
Yeah.
So,
I can't imagine that ever happening, but then again, I couldn't imagine some of the stuff we're doing now ever happening either.
well, I wish you well. When you're not going to retire soon, are you?
Oh, in the next 6 or 7 months.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being out there. You've always had a great reputation out there.
Thank you very much, Counselor.
Thank you for
Mary?
your testimony.
Counselor Kennedy?
Thank you. Hi, Judge. How are you? Congratulations
Good,
on
sir.
your upcoming retirement, if you're looking forward to it, that is. I just want to touch on something Counsel Jewell said about jury trials, and I've raised this with Chief Justice Dolly. I don't know you, Judge. I don't go out to Springfield very often. I've been out there maybe 3 times in my career. But I am in court every day usually. I actually tried a bench trial yesterday in Somerville. a criminal bench trial. I've done countless jury of 6 cases in the district court and a lot in superior court. And I got to tell you what my big beef is with what the trial court's doing right now in terms of restarting jury trials is I don't want jurors deliberating that have to socially distance, that are sitting in the room wanting to get out of there because they're afraid of COVID. You can put all the protections in the world in place. You can put up plexiglass between them. You can have them wearing masks, which I don't like, because they're just not going to interact the way they would in normal times. Do you think we're jumping the gun? You think, I mean, is it that necessary that a first offense OUI go to, we have a vaccine? Judge, I can't hear you. There you go. Now I can.
After you said first offense OUI, you cut out, so I didn't hear that. You cut out again.
This is what trials would be like, right?
Yeah, well, he's proving the point.
That's part of it.
Yeah, we lost him.
I keep going in and out, but I think you get my point that jury deliberations are going to be a problem where people are afraid of getting COVID. They're not going to interact the way we would want them to.
Well, if I could explain, Counselor, what we're going to do in Springfield is we have abutting courtrooms that we use for jury sessions. And the trial would take place in one of the courtrooms, and the deliberations will take place in the other courtroom, so that there will be space, plenty of space.
But I don't want that space. I don't want them in there not interacting. I want them to be a jury that's going to sit there and deliberate the way they used to when they're deciding whether my client's guilty or not guilty. And I think that's a problem. And I don't want jurors in there that just want to get out of there because they're afraid of getting COVID when they're deliberating. I don't think it's going to work.
Well, I'm not guaranteeing anything's going to work. I just this is what we're going to try to do. And as I said to Councilor Jubenville, we're trying to pick cases that are fairly straightforward.
Let me ask you this: if you're on trial, do you want the jurors going into a deliberation room right now during COVID, having a socially distance themselves, having to wear masks, probably some of them, and not interacting the way a normal jury would?
The only thing I can tell you, Counselor, is anecdotally, my son is a lawyer out in Denver, and he was on a jury just as the COVID situation broke out in March, and the case got continued until June. And they brought them back, and the lawyers agreed to go forward. And he told me that they did their deliberations in a courtroom, and he thought it went okay.
No, I get that, but you're still separated out. You're not sitting around a table discussing it the way you normally would. You're wearing masks. You're socially distancing, and I don't think that's the way a jury trial should be. And if we have to wait 6 months to do them, so what?
Well, I will. I'll pass along your thoughts to my chief, but that's at a higher pay grade than mine.
Now, Judge Delvecchio just walked into my mediation. She's giving me a dirty lick, so I have to go to the other end of the room and put my mask on. It was nice talking to you, Judge.
Thank you, Counselor.
All right, I understand that we're supposed to have the assembly at 11:30. Is that correct, Lauren? Someone?
No, 12 o'clock.
It's going to be 12 o'clock. Okay. Our next witness is going to be Carmen.
Excuse me, Mary.
Counselor Anella.
Yeah, one thing, Judge, congratulations on your upcoming retirement. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm just curious. I mean, and I don't want to give you a hard time, but you really didn't answer Counselor Kennedy's question. I'm a lawyer, and what's your sense? I mean, here's Kennedy's thing. He likes them all in the same room. He likes them to be able to interact. And you said, you'll talk to the chief. But I'm just curious, your own personal opinion. You can say, I think Kennedy's wrong. You know what? I think he's right. He makes a great point. And I don't know your opinion. I know you're not the nominee, but I'm curious if you have an opinion.
I I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with what Kennedy, Counselor Kennedy says. But what I am indicating is that we have a backlog of cases that are now working on 7 and 8 months, and that's cases that started 7 or 8 months ago. Never mind the cases that were scheduled for trial back in March that we haven't got to. And at some point, we're going to have to decide how we're going to do it. And I think we're going to have to try some innovative ways and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we have other issues to deal with. But we have a backlog of cases so great in the Springfield District Court right now that I'm not sure, even if we had extra judges, Danielle Williams being one of those judges, hopefully, that we could catch up within 2 or 3 years if we had 2 or 3 jury trials a day. So I just think I understand your concern, and if I was practicing, I would have the same concerns. But from our standpoint, we have to do something to get the justice system moving, and we have to try some things that we haven't done before and see if they work.
Well, thank you. I do agree with Kennedy, Counselor Kennedy, in the sense, like, is it that important? First offense, OUI, if they're really that important, if we wait another 6 months, another 8 months, I don't know. I personally don't think it's that important. I think it's more important to get it right as opposed to handling the backlog. I understand what you're saying about the backlog. That's important. But to me, it's more, we got to get it right. And I do agree with Counselor Kennedy. I'm not sure this is the best way, but I wish you well. And maybe someday you'll be practicing again. I'm not sure what your thoughts are going forward, but it's good to see you, Judge.
Thank you very much, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge Payne. And I would also indicate that 4 years ago, he started championing Danielle Williams as a superstar. And after getting to know her, you're absolutely right, Judge Payne. It's great to see you.
Thank you very much.
And don't come back in practice. Just enjoy it. Your well-deserved retirement.
As you know better than anyone, Counselor, that all depends on what my wife says. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from another superstar, Carmen Lozado Carroll, who is a sessions clerk in the Springfield District Court, better known as Peachy to everybody, and she does a fantastic job. I only wish she went to law school. So
yeah,
she could
me
be
too.
considered for a judgeship. But as long as your boss is Clerk Gay there, John Gay?
Yeah. Yes, he's here.
Okay, well, my commercial message is that she should become a clerk.
Thank you. Okay, ready? Good morning. My name, as Judge Hurley indicated, is Carmen Lozada Carroll, and I am currently the office manager for the Springfield District Court Clerk's Office. I was a session clerk for 27 years and have been with the trial court for 39 years. I'm a little nervous, but excited and honored to speak on behalf of Assistant Clerk Magistrate Danielle Williams' nomination. Congratulations, Danielle. You will be a great judge as you are a clerk. I couldn't be happier for you. Governor Baker did an excellent job in nominating you. You have always been a smart, compassionate, and have a calming presence. I am so impressed with all your endeavors. It speaks volumes of your integrity. Congratulations, well deserved. If you worked in the courthouse on a regular basis, you already know how great a pick this is. These are a few of the 100 comments received from people in the Pioneer Valley in support of Assistant Clerk Williams' nomination. And today I join the voices of the Valley in corroborating this deserving and commendable nomination. I have worked with Assistant Clerk Williams for a total of 8 years. I've observed her from afar and close up. She is consistent and a woman of integrity. She is smart, a student of the law. Although compassionate and kind, Assistant Clerk Williams exhibits quite a quiet strength and is no pushover. She is an active listener and a critical thinker and is gifted with common sense, and she is a woman of her word. Despite her busy schedule, Assistant Clerk Williams finds time to volunteer in the community. Her family and her faith are her cornerstones of Assistant Clerk Williams' life, and she has an extraordinary strong family unit. Myself and our Springfield District Court family wholeheartedly support Assistant Clerk Williams' nomination for judgeship. As you know, I had to write everything down so that I wouldn't mess up, but I am very proud to be called her friend and her colleague, and she's going to do a great job.
Thank you. Any questions of this witness? Hearing none, Peachy did a great job. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
would now call on on Clerk John Gay from the Springfield District Court. I hope you heard
Good
what I
morning, Chairman Hurley, fellow councilors. Good morning. My name is John Gay. I'm the Clerk Magistrate of the Springfield District Court, and I've been asked and honored to testify on behalf of Danielle Williams. I've known Danielle for about 5 years when she applied and successfully achieved the assistant clerk status that she currently enjoys now. She has been nothing short of a joy and a true ambassador to our office, to the city, and to the trial court in general. My mother always told me to follow the 3 Bs, which is to be brief, be bright, and to be gone. And I will work on the middle one. That's a hard one for me. The 2 that preceded and followed it, I'd be glad to follow. I want to just take a moment to talk about Danielle's pedigree. Unlike Judge Payne, I didn't have to suffer, as he might have said, as a young attorney, as she was a young district attorney. I got Danielle in her fully ripened status. She is excellent. She is competent. She is exactly what an assistant clerk should be. And what's more importantly, she's exactly, she embodies the temperament and the qualities of an effective district court judge. She, as Judge Payne already alluded, she runs the busiest arraignment session in this Commonwealth. But in addition to that, she's not a one-trick pony. She's effectively dealt with small claims trials, show cause hearings, and a vast array of administrative issues that come before this court every day. The final thing I'd like to mention before I happily take questions about Danielle's candidacy is the fact that in the Superior Court, there's sometimes a ponderous legacy of doing the begets when a candidate becomes a Superior Court judge. But in this case, I want to point out the person that Danielle would be following, because it's a remarkable how much similarity they have. Judge Patricia Martinelli Polar is a spot that she would fill. And if I were to summarize Judge Polar's attributes, I would say that she was flexible, she was versatile, she was calm under pressure, she was poised and competent, and she was empathetic. And I mention those adjectives only because they're gleaned directly from Danielle's resume. The 2 are symbiotic and symbolic sisters. And I commend Governor Baker and this council for considering her most excellent nomination. She has a once in a lifetime, once in a generation mind. And the trial court will be done proud with her ascendancy to the bench. I'm happy to answer questions.
I have more questions.
Back in good health.
Hello?
Any questions? Councilor Jubenville.
Yes. Thank you. It's good to see you again. I saw you, I don't know, it's got to be 6, 7 years ago now at a Hampden County Bar
That's right.
luncheon. I was still a member of the Hampden County Bar at that time. But I hear nothing but good things about you. In fact, I was talking to Attorney Franco this morning, and I mentioned you were coming here, and he went on and on about you. So
Thank you.
you got a great reputation there. tell me how, your feelings on somebody who's an assistant clerk moving into a judge's position. How does that align itself?
I think it depends. And I think in Danielle's case, it's a tribute to her mother, her upbringing, and her liberal arts background, that she's been able to master all aspects of what is within the district court's jurisdiction. She, as Judge Payne noted, she was an ADA. In addition, she was also an assistant attorney general. But she wasn't just a prosecutor. She's done extensive civil litigation, which qualifies her as just a total package. So in Danielle's case, I would say I have absolutely no reservations. We've been trying in Springfield to get more generalists in, much like Danielle. It's hard to find someone exactly like her, but that's been my vision. I'm a liberal arts guy, and I think people should know about history and civil and criminal and everything that goes into a liberal arts education. And Danielle is the perfect embodiment of that. So if you can find me another assistant clerk like Danielle, I would hire him or her in a second.
We see sometimes, or I see sometimes, people that I have voted on, and then years down the road, a few years down the road, I go into a courthouse and some lawyer says to me, or some assistant clerk or some DA, "Did you vote for that person?" And I say, "Yeah, why?" And they go on to tell me all these negative things about the person. Do you think there's any issue here with when people receive a robe and they have that power, perceived power, if you want to call it, changing?
I started my career in Dorchester, and the office manager back then was a woman named Dottie Kelly, and her father was
know
John
Dottie
Kelly.
Kelly, yeah.
And John Kelly had a famous expression where a judge can hurt you, but a clerk can kill you.
No, no doubt about it.
Danielle will never kill anybody. I mean, she is open-minded, she's respectful, and she doesn't take her authority lightly. You know, my biggest lament, in a sense, is that I will never be able to call her Danielle again. She'll always be judged to me from now on. But it's a price worth paying.
Who was the clerk in Dorchester when you were there?
Richard Dwyer,
Oh, yeah. Richard Payne, yeah. Did Richard pass away?
he did about
Yeah.
5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, he was down the Cape doing different.
He was,
work
yeah, he
down
was
there.
helping in Barnstable.
Yeah, he was a good guy. How long were you there?
I was there from 1985 to 94 and then I took a regional administrative job with then Chief Justice Zoll. Then I became the clerk 2011 in this building.
And where are you from, the Dorchester area?
I'm actually from Walpole originally. I relocated to Western Mass when I received the job from Chief Justice Zoll as a regional director. So
Where do you live
so
now?
I've been out there since 94
Where do you live now?
in East Hampton.
Your sister lives there. Nice town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions of this witness?
I do.
It's good to see you again, John. Glad you're in good health.
Judge, I think Counselor Devaney has a question.
Oh, okay, Counselor Devaney.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I have to ask you, what is the strongest attribute you could give to this nominee?
For this nominee? It's hard to choose. I think it's her brilliance. I mean, and by brilliance, I'm not hedging the answer, but her brilliance lies in the fact that there are things that she knows that she doesn't know. And instead of trying to hide them the way some people would do, she dives in. So she brilliantly masters what she can with humility, in the sense that she can expand and treat each day as a learning opportunity. She's just a wonderful human being.
Tell me, what are the years of experience and how you have worked with this nominee?
I'm sorry?
How many years have you worked with this nominee? What experience have you had?
Yeah, I was happy to hire her 5 years ago. So that really began my relationship with her.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you,
I
Counsel.
appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chairman.
Great to see you.
You as well. Thank you.
All right. We're going to have our assembly at 12 o'clock. So at this time, I would introduce our nominee, Danielle Williams. I would invite you, first of all, to introduce your family and then to give your opening statement.
Thank you very much. Morning. I have brought with me my family today, my brother Robert and my nephew Kason, my niece Gabrielle, and my mother Yvonne. So thank you very much. I love you. Thank you for being here with me. Good morning. First, I thank Lieutenant Governor Polito and Governor Baker for the honor of this nomination. I thank the members of the Governor's Council for considering confirmation of my nomination to the District Court. I especially thank Councilor Mary Hurley for hosting this hearing today. I also thank Bob Ross, Lauren Green-Petrino and their staff, the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, and the Joint Bar for placing my name before the Governor for nomination. I thank each one of my witnesses, Judge John Payne, Clerk John Gay, and Mrs. Carmen Lozada Carroll, better known in the court as Peachy. I am humbled by your support, and I am grateful that each one of you has been an important part of my journey. I am the proud daughter of William and Yvonne Williams. Yes, my late father's name is William Williams. He often joked, "I'm so nice, my mama named me twice." Born in Eufaula, Alabama in 1943, my dad, a biracial child of the South, didn't have an easy time. But what he did have was vision and commitment. As a young boy, he always knew what he wanted to be, an engineer. One of his teachers shot down his dream, stating that little brown boys can't be engineers. But my father knew what he wanted to be, and he refused to allow the circumstances of his upbringing or race make him doubt his worth or the possibility of his success. He began his career as a Navy mechanic, working on planes he would have flown if not for his less than optimal eyesight. Later, he worked on the auto line making cars in Buffalo, never losing sight of his goal. He attended college, the first in his family to do so, and became what he intended. He was hired as a young engineer with Procter & Gamble. My father worked successfully as an engineer for over 25 years, becoming a world-renowned resource in his profession. He passed away in 2008, and I could not be prouder or more appreciative of the example that he has set for me. My mother came to this country from Trinidad as a young girl to study. Raised by her paternal grandparents, she had an example of grandparents who had high standards and boundless love. Mama, and Daddy as she called them, doted on my mother and my Aunt Leah, but they expected excellence. Study and clear goals were important. Daddy taught my mother to treat everyone with decency and compassion, lest she entertain angels unaware. My mother's faith in people was almost equal to her faith in God. She has always believed that if you speak with someone long enough, you will find common ground and understanding. She had a successful career in corporate America before she was diagnosed with cancer when I was 11. 3 primary cancers in 4 areas is not something that is tracked, let alone survived. Yet more than 31 years after her diagnosis and major surgery, she is cancer-free. She owes this to her faith and her willingness to change a workaholic lifestyle that was killing her. In her example, I remember to seek balance in my life. My first brush with a legal career came when I graduated from college. I returned home from the College of William and Mary, and unlike my father, had absolutely no idea what I wanted to be. A family friend suggested I apply for an internship in the Hampden County District Attorney's Office. It was her assessment that I was sheltered, and working down at the Hall of Justice would open my eyes to some of the struggles that other people were facing on a daily basis. She was right. I was sheltered. District Attorney Bill Bennett hired me as a victim witness advocate in 1998. Assigned to the busy Springfield District Court, it was my task to help usher people through a legal system that most want to avoid. From arraignment to pretrial to disposition and trial, I listened to questions and fears and began to understand the importance of the community court in which I worked. I spent a great deal of time admiring the judges and clerks and attorneys and court staff, how they worked together to ensure that people had access to justice. It was a system I wanted to be a part of. I decided to go to law school. After law school, I returned to the Hampden County DA's office as an assistant district attorney in 2003. The district attorney's office was a fast-paced training ground for a young lawyer. I learned there was a big difference between ushering people through a legal system and working as a prosecutor within that system. There, I learned the importance of preparedness. DA Bennett insisted that all ADAs be able to try a case competently at a moment's notice. He reminded us that our client was the general public and ensured we handled every case with the weight of that responsibility. After 3.5 years at the office, I left for private practice. As much as I loved the work of the district attorney's office, it was important for me to gain civil experience. As an associate at Fierce, Kane, and Bloomberg, my law practice concentrated on criminal defense, landlord-tenant law, real estate, law, as well as estate planning. I know these varied focuses helped me develop the ability to pivot my thinking quickly and competently in order to assess potential legal issues from different perspectives. During this period, I also realized how much I enjoyed and missed public service, and how much I missed being part of giving ordinary people in my community a voice and access to justice. Returning to the Springfield District Court as an assistant clerk magistrate felt a lot like coming home, but presented new challenges. I can tell you that working in the Springfield District Court will reveal a person's true nature. There is nowhere to hide when the docket is overfull, the technology fails, and all hell breaks loose. However, I am proud of my ability to adapt to the demand, put the work first with decency and respect, and work with all of the components of the court for the common goal of providing people access to justice. Clerk Gay has afforded me the opportunity to really shine, ensuring that I work in all sessions from arraignment to pretrial to trial to small claims to show cause hearings has allowed me to expand my experience. His approach allows me to build on the skills in my toolbox to meet any challenge. He encourages his clerks to always remember that the goal of our community court is to serve the public. The judges of the Springfield District Court have been a great example for me. Their compassion, knowledge of the law, and ethical approach to administration of justice are things that I have endeavored to adopt and live in my own life. If given the opportunity to become an associate justice of the district court, I would keep the foregoing as my capstone. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. I invite you to ask me any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I also neglected, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? In these days of COVID, it's pretty obvious there isn't. So at this point, we'll entertain questions from the counselors, and I'm just letting you know that at noon or thereabouts, we're going to have an assembly with the Lieutenant Governor. And I will, at that point, break and announce probably a 15-minute recess. Okay, so.
I can be done before noon. I can be done before noon, Council.
All right, Councilor Ferrara.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I believe I met you. Did you fill in Westfield District Court at times?
Occasionally.
Yeah, I think I did. And actually, I remember that you were extremely, extremely kind. I had a client who was trying to make a couple of bucks doing some salvage, bringing them some parts to New York, stopped by the Mass State Police. I was a cop for 30 years, chief of police, but they really hammered this guy back. I mean, he's a sole proprietor trying to make a living. They nailed him with over $5,000 worth of fines and made him empty his truck that day and get it towed, and it was just awful. But you were extremely compassionate, fair. I think you were so fair that the trooper wasn't that happy at the end of the day. but I appreciated your courtesy, and you certainly did the right thing. Your counselor, Mary Hurley, is a huge fan of yours. Spoke highly about you when you got nominated. You know, I also do a civil practice, and I think it's important that it's definitely an added bonus that you have done civil practice as well as criminal practice. Your resume is phenomenal. I appreciate your service as a as well as an assistant clerk. And I know I have to vote for you next week, or Mary Hurley will never talk to me again. So you have my vote next week. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Some people would think that was a reward. Councilor Danielle, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, just a statement. I know Councilor Hurley is supporting you. Thank you for calling on me. I think you're an outstanding candidate. I enjoyed listening to your witnesses, and next week I'd be more than happy to support you.
Thank you, Councilor Danielle. Councilor Kennedy.
I only have a couple of things I want to say because we spoke on the phone. I am at a mediation, as I indicated, it was scheduled a very long time ago. We had a very long conversation on the phone. I think you're incredibly qualified. I think you've got a great demeanor. And I'll reiterate what everyone else has said. Your home council is a huge fan. And like Councilor Ferrara, I'm afraid of her too, so I'm going to vote for you.
You should be now, Terry. Thank you very much, Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Duff.
I best unmute myself. How are you?
I'm well.
You do, just to reiterate, you have a phenomenal resume and a fabulous reputation. I think Councilor Fiera may have said it, the combination of academics' world experience in compassion and the ability to listen isn't something we always see. I think you're so well suited for the district court. Thank you for applying. I have one question. It's more of a curiosity. When you were the president of the multimedia company Gata, is that how you
Yes.
say it?
Yes. Well, it's hyphenated, but yes, Gata, yes.
Okay. How did you, and this has nothing to do with your judgeship, but I think it's a fascinating thing. How did you get involved or interested in Egyptian mythology?
So it was actually something that I'd always been interested in. I think it started with my parents taking me to museums as a child. You know, we were fortunate to travel to Europe, and I remember going to the British Museum and going to the Egyptian exhibit and spending all of my time there and just wondering about the history and the stories of these mummies I was seeing in these statues. And so started looking into it. And so I think my fascination started there, honestly. And so I was really fortunate to be able to write some of that in my former life.
That's fantastic. To be frank, I was the same way. I mean, Tales of the Arabian Nights was probably probably still is one of my favorite books. And they had done some movies of it, aren't all exactly accurate to the book, but fascinating. And I had the great, I guess, pleasure and opportunity to travel to Egypt probably 40 years ago, when it was quite different than it is today. As a single woman backpacking, and let me tell you, it was a fabulous, fabulous experience. And I met friends there that I stayed in touch with for many years, and even my parents went to visit them over in Cairo. So I'm fascinated by that. Anyway, I not to beat the drum, but I really don't have any questions for you. Your resume truly speaks for itself and your reputation. Councilor Hurley is a big fan. That gets you to the 40-yard line with me, not all the way, but everything else does get you all the way. So thank you so much, frankly, for your application. It's really, it's so wonderful to see this, such a diverse background and a plethora of experience. And frankly, like I said, your reputation as somebody who really truly listens and makes decisions based on that is really great. And I'm a fan of William and Mary as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions of this nominee?
I do, Counselor Hurley.
Counselor Jubenville.
Before they make a statue out of you and put it on the front of the State House lawn, I'm going to ask you some questions, okay?
Of course.
I want to preface it by saying I have received a lot of input from lawyers in the Springfield area. We received some good statements from the judge and the clerk, who were very well respected. And Judge Santinello sent a letter on your behalf. And I think the world of him also. So I take a lot of that as important. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind your compassion, which is a very big part of, I think, making a good judge. Common sense and compassion, I think, are the two things that make a great judge. But there are things I want to ask you. Your background, you had indicated that you worked for, let's see, you first worked for, I want to go backwards here. So you started with the Hampden County District Attorney's Office as a victim witness advocate.
Yes.
And that was when?
That was I started the fall of 1998. So I interned first, and then DA Bennett hired me.
Okay. So you went from the advocate's office to an assistant DA's position?
Yeah, I was actually briefly, I was a part-time associate with two firms. So in the morning I worked for Patty Glenn, and in the afternoon, I worked for Richard Goldman. So I did, for her, I did divorce and personal injury, and in the afternoon, I did real estate and estate planning.
So the Goldman and Glenn was from January '03 to October '03?
Yes, sir.
And why did you leave there?
I really thought it was really important I didn't want to be one of those attorneys who were afraid to get up on their feet and be in a courtroom. So I really appreciated that experience, but I really wanted to get trial experience, which I knew I would get at the district attorney's office.
So you left there to go into the DA's office?
Yes.
You were in the DA's office from 2003 to 2007?
Yes.
And why did you decide to leave there?
I believe there's a point where you know if you're a lifetime prosecutor and or whether it's time to try something new. And I thought it was time to expand my experience as an attorney and get some experience in civil practice. So that's when I decided to leave the district attorney's office.
And where did you go then?
I went to New York and I worked for a firm, the Scott firm. It was a challenging time because it was also the same at that time that my father was diagnosed with cancer. So I spent a great deal coming back to Massachusetts. So I have to say that I was definitely 1 foot in New York and 1 foot in Massachusetts because of that.
You didn't put you were a member of the New York bar.
No, I was not.
So you didn't go to court?
No,
You didn't try any cases there?
I did not.
Okay, then where did you go after you left there?
I came back to Massachusetts and I did some work on my own and worked for still was affiliated with the multimedia company writing. Found that was really important as a way of my grieving process. And then was fortunate to become an associate at the firm of Fierce, Kane and Bloomberg.
The multimedia company was from when to when?
Goodness, it was, I believe it was 2000. I was there I was on and off between 2008 to 2013, I think.
And that was not practicing law?
No, sir. I was doing stuff on my own at the same time, though, practicing.
What stuff?
I did some business organization work, some trademark work at that time in Massachusetts.
Did you have any trials at that time?
I did not.
And then you worked for a company, a firm in Northampton?
Yes.
And you were there for a little over 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yes, sir.
How come you left there?
At that point, a few reasons. Number one, I think if you are a person who can knock down doors and get clients, and I think it takes a special personality and person who's able to do that. And that's not something I'm gifted in doing. And I also realized how much I missed and loved public service. So I was looking for a way to get back into public service. And that's when I applied both to the Attorney General's office and for the position of Assistant Clerk Magistrate.
You want to stop?
Counselor Gibbonville, if you can just pause. I think
Yep.
the Lieutenant Governor is joining us for the assembly now.
Yes, so as I indicated, we're going to suspend the hearing so that we can meet with the Lieutenant Governor for the assembly. I'm going to indicate that we'll try and go back, it's 12:04, we'll try and go back in session at 12:20. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor.
Councilor Hurley,
Your-
members
your,
of the Governor's
your
Council.
resume and
Running governor.
Good morning.
where the heck I was here, but
I think you asked me why I left. Fierce
Okay, we
and-
may begin the assembly this week. I would call upon Councilor Ionella for our prayer and
Northampton.
pledge
Okay, yeah.
today.
yeah.
Thank
and
you very
what
much.
was-
Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
I realized I
Thank
really
you.
missed public service and I wanted
We
to
come
get
to
back
you this
involved in
hour,
the courthouse
asking for
system. I
your
also
blessing and
don't
help
think that I
as we
particularly
are
have the
gathered together.
creative-
We
I'm the
pray
type
for
of person
guidance
who
in the matters
down,
at hand
doors
and
for
ask that you would
clients
clearly
and,
show us how
so
to
at that
conduct
point,
our
I looked
work
for an
with a
opportunity
spirit
to
of
get back
joy
into the court
and
system and public
enthusiasm.
service.
Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our
So you
work.
left
Help us to
public
work
service
together
for
and
the DA's
encourage
office
each
the
other
second
to
time you went in
excellence. We ask
to go
that
to-
we would challenge each other
out
to
into
reach
private.
higher and farther
Yes.
to the best
You
we
didn't
can
like
be.
private.
We ask
I
this
love
in the
aspects
name of
of
the
it, but I
Lord.
definitely think that I
Amen.
thrive more in public service. It's something that I really love, feeling that I can contribute to
I
my
pledge
community in that way.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
You don't
and
have a
to
lot
the
of trial
republic
experience.
I don't have a lot of
stands
reason to try. As
one
an assistant
nation,
district attorney, I
under
tried
God,
probably
indivisible,
estimated
with
over 50
liberty
trials.
and
I
justice for
How
second.
come you
all.
didn't put them down in your filings?
I
I
call
believe
upon
they're
Counselor
out-
Kennedy
that's
for a
listed
motion
in
to
my
record advice
application.
and consent for the
changed the
financial
application,
warrant.
but I have had
So moved,
50 plus
Governor.
trials. Most of those were bench, but I've
Second.
had jury
A
trials as
motion
well.
and a
Say about
second. All in favor,
14
say
jury
aye.
trials at that time when I was
Aye.
at Pierce, Kane, and Bloomberg. I second
I
chaired
recognize Counselor
one of the
Duff for a
partners
motion to
on
record
three murder
advice and
trials.
consent for the pending
I
list of
didn't
notaries,
panel a
public,
case
and
in Superior
justices of
Court.
the
Unfortunately,
peace.
the defendant
So
in that
moved,
case
Governor.
fled before we
Second.
could actually
There's
have
a
the
motion and a
trial. So I
second. All in
prepared that
favor,
trial,
say
but I
aye.
wasn't able to
Aye.
complete it.
Aye.
We were paneled up. And I've
I
done
recognize
eviction
Counselor
trials.
Ionella for a
in
motion to
House as
record
well.
advice and consent for the appointment of
Okay,
Robert
I,
W. Parnes to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court.
Thank you. I make a motion that we approve Robert Hartnett to the district court, judge of the district court.
Second.
There's a motion. Is there a
Lieutenant
second?
Governor,
There's a second?
Second.
Second.
Yes, Counselor
Thank
Devaney.
you.
Yeah, wait a minute.
First of all, I say this with regret, because he's a nice man, but I made a pledge when I first got on the council that I would not have anyone buy their way in. And unfortunately, I
When you, let me
I
ask you
don't-
this question. When
I
you
don't know
worked
how
in the
much.
district
It-
attorney's office,
hundreds
who
of
was,
thousands of
like,
contributions
who taught you, or who was
that,
your mentor?
this
or who-
man has given.
Eileen Sears was
And
my
he didn't
supervisor.
have
The two
to.
Eileen Sears,
He's
and Eileen
qualified.
Levy were
But,
my two
I made a
supervisors at that
pledge,
time.
and I
So
also,
learned,
I
under the two
also
of them as
have,
supervisors.
in addition, into
in
the
that office
governor's,
at the time,
governor's
Bill
statement
Bennett
to
was the
all
district attorney,
nominees.
so he routinely
And
was one of
that,
the
and
best
that
hands-on bosses used to come down and sitting on trials
anyone
and
who is applying for a judgeship to give money to the governor, lieutenant governor. And,
So-
and it reads also
Page 11 of
governor's
your
counselors.
J&C
And I did
application
that
says list
because,
the five
people
most
know in the
significant
past,
trials,
there
appeals,
were
and transactions.
counselors
or
that
other
went to
legal
prison
matters in which you were
selling
involved in your
judgeships.
career.
And I feel very
And
strongly
you cite
that we
Saldana
should not
versus
be,
the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
it shouldn't be based on
And that
pages
was an
of
appeal to the Superior
contributions.
Court to return
And
a
so,
license.
one of the
To,
things that greatly
yes, to have
concerned
to
me
return someone's right to
was
operate the motor
that,
vehicle in Massachusetts, yes.
the nominee,
And that wasn't a
besides
trial.
giving all this
No,
money to
I-
lieutenant
my-
governor and
I-
governor,
No, it was not.
that after
And
the,
I've done those in
after the
Superior Court.
deadline of giving
About a half hour.
contributions, his wife gave a number of contributions, but one in particular that concerns me
The next
is
case
the,
was
well, actually, it's $1,500,
Commonwealth versus
1,000 and
Collazo.
500 to the lieutenant governor. And
You second
I
chaired
don't
that
want this
Yes.
to be,
in the fall of
out there that
2016.
we're not concerned about these things and that we want people to come before us with the merits of their
Who
work.
was the
And this man didn't have to
trial
do it.
lawyer?
It was Jeff
He
Brown,
had the
Jeff Brown.
No, but
qualifications.
who was the
So,
DA?
that's a
And
lot
this
of
is,
money.
if
These
I-
are 1,500
Were you in the DA's office?
a
then?
pop.
No, I was not.
So
It was,
Oh,
I
you were
can't,
chairing
in
it,
all
too.
justice,
I was-
do this. That's why
You didn't
I
put down the
went
judge or the
to
docket number.
Governor
I couldn't remember the
Romney,
docket number,
and
and I said to
he
myself,
put
if I'd
that
known I would never be
into
sitting
the,
here, I would have taken better
into
note
the
and putting those in a trial
application that
notebook.
But when you went to
the
fill this
witness,
application
the
out,
nominee
you think
here
of
has
going
seen
to the
today.
court
And I
with
think
the
it's
docket
very
number,
important to
judge's
take the
name,
money
so on and
out of
so.
it. And
I
so,
tried,
unfortunately, I am not going to be able to vote for this person because
Well, we
I
tried
live by
to
that.
get that.
I-
I can go
well,
tomorrow, I
don't
can go
buy our
tomorrow
way
and get
in
this in
here.
Springfield.
And he even gave to
Right.
a sitting
Yeah.
counselor here a couple of years ago
Next
who will
case
be
is
voting.
Commonwealth
So
v.
I
and you don't
just
put the name
don't
of
want
the,
that
case.
equation to be in here. Those days are
Why didn't you
gone.
put the name of the
And I
case?
don't want this
I
to
believe
be,
that.
I
if
don't
that's the
want
one
this
that
to
the
be
motion to
out
suppress
there
case,
for
I don't
people
believe
to
I
say,
remember.
gee, if you
It's
give a
most
lot of money to
significant me
everyone,
because of
you're
where I
going
worked
to
in that
get,
case, but unfortunately,
you're
I
going to get a
could not remember the
judgeship.
name of the
So with that, that's
that's
my
why I left
reason
that
for
blank.
voting no.
It was a district
And
court case?
I don't do it with
District court
joy.
motion to
I don't do it with joy, but it's wrong and it has to stop.
And the
And we
fifth
have
case
to
you
have
put is,
show, this council has to show that we are not
adoption of
going to
any
vote
shall.
people with with pages and pages
Right.
of
Yeah.
contributions. It's wrong. And
So
I
those were
did
the five
ask you,
most
Lieutenant
important
Governor,
cases that you
if
had?
you would,
Yeah, strike
if
that.
you
That's
would
the fourth case.
return that
Fifth
money
one was Commonwealth
to
versus Bruno.
the nominee's wife, because the
2013.
money that she
Judge
gave
Carey.
was after he was interviewed,
Right.
after
I think
the
that's-
JNC approved him, and it was on the governor's desk. This is not the
This is
way
Commonwealth
I
versus
want
Bruno.
my government to work, okay?
Camden
And
County
it's
Superior
wrong.
Court Judge
So
Richard J. Carey.
I will be voting no.
No docket number, dates of
No
involvement.
contributions were made.
October
in violation of the
2013, you
governor's
second
executive
chaired the
order.
case.
Yes,
Anyone else like to be heard?
For the defense?
for the defense.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And
We
how
may
long
begin
did
the
that
roll
case
call.
go?
That case
Counselor Ferrera?
was, I believe it was 2 days.
Yes.
Counselor Jubenville?
Yes.
It was a bench.
Counselor Davini?
No.
Counselor Ianello?
Yes.
Next question,
Yes.
you were asked to list the 5 most
Counselor Duff?
recent cases that
Yes.
have gone to trial.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
For each provide
Counselor
names of the
Hurley?
case, the docket numbers and everything else. You don't list any cases.
Thank you.
The last 5 years I
Counselor
have
Duff for
been-
motion to record
Doesn't-
advice and consent for
doesn't
the
say
appointment
5
of
years. It
Susan
says
H.
list
McNeil to the position
Your
of
5
Associate Justice
most
of the
recent
Lawrence
cases
District
that
Court.
have gone to
Thank you,
trial.
Governor. With great pleasure, I
That
make that
means if your
nomination.
cases are 10 years
Second.
ago, those are your
There's
most
a motion
recent,
and a
you put them
second?
in.
I should have, and I
Yes, Counselor
anticipated
Devaney.
that.
Thank you.
My understanding of that question was that.
First of all,
You'd be interested as
I
a counsel
don't, I
and the
don't
JNC would
find
be interested
pleasure
in more recent trial
in
work, but I
opposing
have
a
trials that
nominee.
would apply.
Who would tell you that?
Unfortunately, sometimes
I mean,
it
personally, I'm
requires
interested in
it.
seeing
And
your trials you
this
did.
is, remind me, I
think one
hope
of
I
the
have
greatest
the right one, but
attributes
we only have
of
2
becoming a
today that
judge
we're
is
voting on, isn't that
experience.
correct?
I have.
That's
right,
correct.
I should have put that.
Okay,
All
all right, so.
You didn't list any, not one.
First of all, I want to say
The
And
that
50 cases you did in the DA's
this
office?
was the most horrendous thing
didn't
that
put
I
one
have
case down.
ever seen, a case that this nominee had.
Did anybody at the
Tried,
JNC?
I lost
pick
sleep
up on
over
this?
it.
They didn't ask me that question, no, sir.
And so, I wanted just
I mean, a
to
couple things
remind
are
people what this
concerning.
was about.
One, that you
On
didn't answer the
November
question.
20th, 2015, a 2-year-old girl was
You didn't
kidnapped
provide the
from
answers
her
to that
home
question. You didn't
in the
answer.
middle of the
It
night.
went on with about
She was
6 or 7
tortured,
paragraphs
burnt,
about other issues.
cut, assaulted, and left naked on the side of a road to
And
die
it says
in the
list the
freezing
5 most
cold.
recent matters.
Thank God,
Did not go to
2
trial.
good Samaritans found her,
You list the case
and
with
first responders
Agostini, again, the
arrived.
involvement with the license.
Yes.
Same
If
one on
she
the
hadn't
first
been
5.
found, this would have been a murder case. This precious child would have frozen to death.
The next one you list is George Knowles versus Massachusetts
So-
Department of State Police.
Yes.
As I said, she
That
was
was
burnt all over
involving
her
an car
body,
accident.
even removing
You were
her
in the AG's
diapers
office?
to burn her in private
Defending the
parts.
Commonwealth.
Yes.
Again,
Her hair was all
no
cut off,
judge, no docket number.
left with cuts, with blood all over her head.
You
This
know,
precious
to me,
little
one
girl
thing,
is 7 years old
judges
now,
have to read a lot of
and
stuff.
she always relives that
And they've
nightmare,
gotta
She will
read it
never get
correctly,
over the
and they gotta
torture.
answer things correctly.
the cruelty for the rest of her life.
This isn't just detail.
She was left to
This is
die
to give people a
naked
chance, if they want to look up the case
in the
number and see
cold.
what you did on it.
on a street by Abigail Hannah. She still is afraid to put on her socks. She looks at the scars that cover her body, and it's always a reminder. Abigail Hannah was hired as a babysitter. When she didn't show up the second time, they fired her. Attorney Susan
you listed your
McNeil
application
defended
that you
Abigail
had.
Hannah, and rightfully so. That's her job.
90% of your
and
work
this
has been
is,
criminal work.
You know, this is not about the position that she has. It's the position that she took defending this person.
What percentage of
First of
trials?
all,
with jury
everyone
and non-jury,
needs to
you
be
put
defended.
15% jury,
I mean,
85% non-jury.
even the horror of the,
I mean, did you think at all that we would be interested
the horrible
in
thing that
seeing those
happened
trials?
with the,
That is like,
in the, I'm sorry, I am so,
You know, Judge
I'm
Hennessy,
still,
the
I'm
former
not myself today, I'm not really
Judicial
feeling
Court
that
Chief
great,
Justice
but
wrote a book
I
about
know
good judges.
that this person,
And it's his opinion,
didn't, this little
the most
girl
important attribute becoming on the
deserved
bench
more justice.
is to have trial experience.
So what happened was
You don't know
Susan
whether you got
McNeil
any. But you didn't give us
defended
any-
Abigail Hannah, and rightfully so.
one
Everyone
case
should be
here that you gave
defended,
us is
and
involving a
she has that right.
serious criminal matter or even
And
a
Attorney
non-serious one. in the
McNeil has
district
that
court.
right to
You
do
don't
her
even put
job.
pleas that you had.
And if I had, and
She
I know, I can
recommended
tell
a
you that I
sentence
have
of
a
3
notebook
years.
and I
This
went
is
back
the
and looked at it,
nominee
and I should have
before
brought it
us.
with me with the,
3
with the,
years
whether they were
for a
guilty or not
monster
guilty, but
who
that
nearly
important
killed a
information that you're
2-year-old
asking me,
child.
I didn't keep track of, and I would never
Abigail
make it up.
Hannah has gone before the
Unfortunately,
parole board
never-
twice
I'm not
in
saying you
2
made it up.
years.
No, I'm not.
What I'm saying
It was
is,
learned that
you
this
didn't
beautiful
answer the
2-year-old was
question.
not her only victim.
I'm
They
surprised
refused her
it
parole.
comes to here before anybody's even asking
They
you.
said that her condition of schizophrenia
You
did
applied
not
for a
raise
judgeship in
to the level
2017.
of what
Three
she
different
did to this
judgeships?
child,
There
that
were 3
many
positions at the time that
have
were
that,
vacant, district court judgeships.
have the same.
Mm.
So she recommended
Did
a
you file
sentence
an
of 3
application
years.
for that?
I did.
Different one
And
than this
the judge,
And
looking at the,
you were only a clerk for
at
1 year
the,
at that point?
Yes.
What made you think
at
you
the
were ready for a
sentence
judgeship in 2017?
is,
I believe that I had
that
developed
was, first of all,
the requisite
there
skills
was
that I had
no
experience in both the
for
civil
this
arena
short
as well as the
sentence.
criminal arena.
She could have
And
given
that
her
I
more.
was ready at that
And the
point
judge,
to,
going by,
take on
you know,
what I
the
believe to be tremendous
regulations,
responsibility
and
and
these,
one of the highest forms of
these
public service,
councils that
which
I
is being
serve
considered
with
justice.
have opposed that, that law. And,
You know, some people will
and
apply
the
for
thing
this
is that,
position because
you know,
it's got a great
when you go
salary,
into the
great pension
details of this
benefits,
hearing,
wonderful
it
health
is
plan.
so,
Well, they
for
probably
anyone.
don't sit as
I've
an
had
assistant clerk
4
magistrate in
children
Springfield District Court and see
that
how
were
incredibly
2
hard
years old,
our
and I
judges
can't
work,
even
and I'm sure,
imagine.
and I see them
And is,
with an overfull
you know,
docket with
the thing is
90
that
pre-trials and a full lockup, and
I heard
giving
that
people the
in this
same amount of
case, and I
energy and
heard the
compassion at the
nominee,
beginning
she
of the
came
day
before
to
us,
the end of the day.
and she was
So
very
I
proud
think
of
they
her
work really
No, I
hard.
don't doubt
actions,
that.
and
I've been in
she
Springfield
said
Court a
that
lot,
was,
and I
you
don't
know,
doubt
really
that. I've
what
been in
should
the
have happened.
courthouses, every courthouse in
And
the
the
Commonwealth.
and the judge
I find
gave
judges
her
and assistant
a
clerks
sentence
and
that
clerks and
she
probation
thought was
officers
appropriate.
do a great deal of
And
work.
so then,
My daughter's a probation
you know,
officer.
as I
My other
said, this
daughter's an
precious
assistant
little
clerk
girl will
at
have that
one Superior
nightmare for
Court.
the rest of her
I
life.
know how hard they work.
And so, you know, so the thing is,
At the
is the
time you
only
applied for the
counselor
17 thing,
who
you only had a year in the
responded
court.
That's correct.
to the victim parents. We all got notified, all the counselors, from the parents of this
My other pet peeve is,
poor child.
you're not the only one.
I was the only one that responded. I
Question
talked with
53.
father.
List all books,
Heartbreaking.
articles, or other publications that you
And
personally have authored, including the
I didn't make
citation
up
dates
these
of
things.
publications,
And one of
and
the
names of any
counselors
co-authors.
asked the
You remember
nominee
what you
if
answered?
what I said was
None,
factual.
not applicable.
I do my
I wish you
homework.
had answered
I'm
none.
proud of the time
That's
I
the
work.
answer.
I'm the only
Yes
full-time
or
up
no,
here.
right?
Yes.
You put
And
not
this
applicable.
was so
Not
heartbreaking.
applicable, why?
I couldn't sleep after I talked with the father.
It seems to
Yet when
be,
this nominee came before us,
nominees seem to do that. I've
she
read
had
one where there's
no,
like 10 not
she
applicables.
didn't
It's
have
like,
any
did you read the
feeling
question?
she did the
Yes or
right
no?
thing. And she went by the standards.
You
But
owe
you know what?
$40,509 on a car loan.
Woman went
What
before
do you
the
have, a
parole
Bentley?
board twice,
I do have a Bentley. I have a
and twice
Mercedes,
they
and it's not
rejected
quite that
her.
high now, but yes.
Mercedes,
And
I do have a
wow.
Mercedes.
the
Must be good
nominee,
being an
when I
assistant
questioned,
clerk,
she
huh?
said that this woman had schizophrenia. Well, the parole
It's a high
board
car
said
loan, I gotta
It
tell
is
you.
a high car loan. I
there are
agree.
others
Wow.
that
And I
have
like it a lot.
this
Huh?
I said a good thing
symptom,
I like it a
and they
lot.
do not torture or children. And so they had rejected her twice. So there is a rule that for good behavior, you can get time off on your sentence. So because of that, this woman is going to be out.
So
She's going to be
you've been
out
a
in
lawyer
April.
for what, 16 years?
Now,
Yes, sir.
the thing is that
You've only practiced though, about 10 or 11, right?
this
I-
father
I think that's fair. I think it may be a
Went
little bit
to
longer,
the
but there was
governor,
a period of time that I definitely took off.
and he
where,
didn't see him. He didn't talk with him
wouldn't say I was practicing full-time.
twice. Can you imagine the parents, how they feel that now
Questions here.
the perpetrator
What do you think of mandatory sentences?
who did all these
agree with
horrible
them. I
things
think
to
that,
their daughter couldn't
that
even be
judges need
heard,
discretion based
and she's
on
going to be a
circumstances
judge?
that they're being presented
And
to
the
craft
thing
an
is
appropriate
that
disposition,
it was
and I think
talked on here
therefore
that,
judges have the ability to do that.
you know, they went by
So here's a
they
question.
went by the book,
You're sitting on the
and
bench.
it really isn't in fact necessary to give
and,
that
it's a
sentence.
mandatory sentence.
But anyway,
and
the
you
thing
know
that I
it's
want
not a fair
to
sentence.
say is that
You know
the parents were reaching
it's
out to
very
the
unfair
council.
that citizen standing.
I'm glad I reached
You gonna
back,
oppose it?
and they
I
they
have to
couldn't
oppose the
come
law, so
to the hearing.
so
They don't
ultimately,
want
that's the
publicity for their daughter. She's gone
requirement of
through a
the law,
lot,
then as much as I'm
and they don't
uncomfortable
want
with
this
it,
all over the
I have a
papers
choice
and everything.
otherwise.
I'm not even giving the
Well,
name here.
I disagree with you.
And
Okay.
that's a sad
There
thing,
was a judge in the
because they
Superior
reached
Court.
out to us,
Worcester
and I
County
responded.
will face that dilemma.
I
with
know
a
I
10-year
don't have
minimum
much
mandatory sentence.
clout. I know I don't.
It was a woman,
And
short little
what
woman.
they want to do is
lot
to
of
tell the
courage.
governor how
She said,
wrong
"I am
the
not
system
gonna- This is
is,
an unfair sentence. And I am
First
not
of
gonna
all,
follow it."
which was so incredible
She gave
that the
the
Department
individual, I think, 2.5
of
years.
Corrections had approved a move to a minimum
Of course, it was
security
appealed,
facility
reversed.
for this person
She made her point.
and eligible to
You know
be
what
out
happened to
in
her after that?
community work.
Nothing.
Imagine the victims.
She didn't get fired.
They had to educate the
won't get
Department
fired.
of Corrections about Abigail Hannah
Judge Harrington in the
having
federal court refused
sex
to sentence
offender
people
status.
in criminal
She has sex
cases under the
offender
guidelines,
status.
mandatory
And
guidelines.
so
But I'm not
with
doing
that information, they didn't
You get
allow
fired.
her to be moved.
Just think if
So
every judge did
this
that.
couple is trying
unfair
to
sentence,
make the
legislature would
system
probably
better.
change it.
They don't want this to happen to any other child.
So I like judges that
And
come here.
they
and
don't
go out,
want
be bold,
someone
be afraid to do-
representing a person
No one's going to fire you.
and
Best they can
challenging
do is transfer
that,
you.
you know, she
You might
did the
sit in
right thing.
Greenfield or Pittsfield
She did.
or Orange.
And according to the
It's a nice ride out
level
there. You'll love it.
that was reported, the medical records, okay, does not
You think we
necessitate
incarcerate
this.
in this
These,
Commonwealth
the description
more
of what
more
happened
minorities?
and
Because
does
they're
not
minorities?
necessitate that. And so
Why do you think that's true?
she's a sexual
That
offender.
bears out in the study that was
And
commissioned by
the
Justice
two-year-old's
Gants that,
father
incarcerating
contacted,
more minorities. I think
as I said, the
it's clear
governor.
that that's the case.
You
He
think there's
has been
racism
so
in our court
involved
system?
making
I
things
think that
right.
there is, yes,
They
whether
are
it's,
even
intentional or unintentional. I think that
involved
the
in,
court system, yes.
Have you known people that have been racist
involved
in your opinion?
in the, they have a march for
I have
children
seen
exploited.
recommendations.
And they're doing everything
made
they can. And they
for
want to
that
talk to the
change
governor.
based on race. Not often,
And they
but I
have been rejected. And I'm asking now for the governor to talk to them.
Do you think
Their life will never be the same.
minorities
Their
get
child
sentenced to
will
higher
never be the
sentences than
same.
non-minorities?
And,
I think so. I think that
you
also
know,
bears out
and this
in
was
the-
a
in the study
monster,
from Justice
a
Gants
monster who
that,
nearly
I think
killed
that
a
that study
2-year-old
indicated
child.
that,
And
people
she's
of
getting
color,
all the treatment
women
that she
that
deserves.
alleged crimes
And the
are equal
council
to
all
that of
thought it
people
was
who are,
wonderful, and they
not of
praised
color, that
the
charges start
nominee
out
for
more
all that she
serious
has
than
done
those,
for
their
the
counterparts. And then
criminal.
even when they're amended down,
And I
equal,
think every criminal has a
charges that
right to
they
be
are-
rehabilitated.
the sentence is usually more
But
serious for people.
Well,
what
how are you
about
gonna handle
this
that in the court?
family?
The
Where's
DA's
the
office wants
justice
a
for
higher
them?
sentence, and you get
That
the
they
DA.
couldn't even talk to the
This
governor?
person's a minority.
And,
How do you
and,
handle
and,
it?
and
I
the
think
thing
partly
is that
is being aware.
they
I
have
think,
all the
of
documentation
a potential,
about this
Well, you are
woman
aware, but
who
how are you gonna
has
handle it?
sexually
Well, I-
attacked
Are you gonna give the
children,
higher sentence?
and yet
No, I will give the sentence that I believe
this
is
never
appropriate
came to
based on the
pass.
circumstances
And the
in
nominee,
front of me, not
you
just
know,
and consider all
when
the
I
circumstances
brought this up,
in front of me.
one of my
So I want
colleagues
that
said,
to
is it
impose
true?
that
Councilor
sentence
Davini is
because the
saying.
client is asking for it, not-
And she said,
Are you gonna be a Commonwealth judge?
she tried to whitewash
You
it
know, us lawyers sit in
and
courtrooms all the
twist
time.
it
You know what we
around.
do?
Is
When
there
we're
a
whispering to
point
each
that-
other, we're
I
talking
just
about the
want to
judge.
say that
Of course.
I am voting no
Like
and I've never
ball
felt
player sitting in the dugout,
stronger
they talk about the pitcher.
for a level
We
3
talk about
sex
judges
offender
saying, hey, how's this
and what
person?
this child will go
This,
through
that.
her life
I
and
think
her
the benefit
family
that I've
for
had,
what she
honestly, as
did.
being an assistant
So
clerk is that
the justice
have
didn't meet
part of
the
my job
crime,
as an assistant
and
clerk
she
is
will
to
be
be
out
impartial. So I have
in a few months. And this
that
trial
practice
will have
in
all
small
those
claims
scars
hearings
for what
and,
she did,
show
cigarette
cause hearings
burns
and
and
all those
everything
sessions
else.
and being impartial.
So I'm
I
sorry
would
that
not
I
impose
have
a
to be
sentence just simply because the
so
Commonwealth asks me to impose it. I would
dramatic
hear
about it, but
from all sides and
as a mother of 4
information presented
children and
to craft the
grandchildren,
disposition
I
that I
pray
believe
for
is
this girl.
appropriate for
I
this
pray for
jurisdiction.
her. And,
Here's what I
and
see.
she
I
had no
see,
remorse. She was so
I
proud of
represent
what she
people
did when
from
she was
minority
before us,
communities.
this
Of
nominee.
course, there's a big
And I'm
minority
not
population
proud.
in
I'm not
Springfield,
proud of what she
Illinois.
did. And
Okay.
I will be
And
voting no.
It
Okay,
struck
thank
me
you,
a few years
Counselor.
back
I
that
assure you that the Executive Office of Public
when I look at the
Safety
BOP
has
of
met
some
with the
individual,
family and will continue to work
even if
with
they're
them and be
young, 20,
available
21 years
to
old, they've
them.
had a lot of contact
I
with
hope so.
police.
We have a motion and a
Lieutenant Governor,
second.
may I say
Is there
something?
anyone
The
else
same
who would like to
thing
be
if they're
heard?
from some
Counselor
private
Ganella. No,
Western
Counselor
policy
Jubenville.
along Thank you. Meadow. Well, I heard the
So,
argument about this lady.
I think the
that
interaction
my
is greater
colleague
because
from
they are
Watertown
minorities.
had during the hearing. I hear
Therefore,
her
they end up with
comments today.
more on their BOP
And what
than somebody
I
from
take
Long
from them
Meadow, a
is
young kid from Long Meadow
that
would face.
everybody has
So
a
now they're
right to a
before the
lawyer,
court on another charge,
as long as the lawyer does
and the
something
judge
that
looks and
she
sees he
agrees
has a
with.
record. So he gets sentenced
And
higher than
I
somebody who doesn't have a
can't
record.
stress enough
To me, that's a
how
form of
bad this
racism.
crime was. It was a terrible crime, and I read what the parents wrote, and it's, their hurt is palpable, and I feel for them every day. It's a terrible thing they went through. I have 2 daughters, and I would feel the same way if it happened to one of mine.
The last year,
But we live in a
why
country
do
that has
we
probably
all,
the greatest judicial
DAs,
system in the
lawyers, and
world.
judges, look at somebody's
One of the
record.
reasons
Tell me why we
it
do that.
is so great
Well,
is
I think it
because we have
does,
the presumption of
there's certain
innocence law that
instances where
says
I think the
everybody is
record does
presumed innocent,
give a
no
picture. I
matter
think that
what
you
they're
have to
accused
consider
of,
whether or not a
until they
default
either
is
plead
an
guilty
appearance default, whether it's a default.
or a jury
from
finds them
fines. I
guilty.
don't think those are equal.
The
I
other
think
thing about our
then
country that
it's
makes
a
us so
second
great
offense to make sure that the charging is
is that
appropriate.
everybody in our
So
system
I
that's
think there are
charged with a
various
crime where
reasons
they
that we
could be
can-
incarcerated has a right to an attorney.
I've been
A
hearing
very
since I
famous
was a
case
kid
of
that
Gideon
this
versus
country wants to
Wainwright,
pay your price to
1963
society, it's over.
case, where Mr.
Not in our
Gideon
court
was
system.
tried without a lawyer,
It's getting rehashed and
even though
rehashed.
he begged for
right?
one. He was in Florida.
Progressive discipline.
And the judge said that he wasn't
The
going to
court
give him
system uses that now for
a
employees.
lawyer. He didn't give him one.
So you
Mr.
think
Gideon
you
was
think
found guilty and sentenced to 5
going
years
to
in state
jail
prison.
has
His
worked
case,
generally over.
his case made its
Say
way
the
to the
last 100
Supreme
years.
Court, and on March 18th of
You think it's
63,
worked as to what it was designed to
Justice
do?
Black issued a
I
decision.
guess
Other
the question is what
justices
you think
chimed
we
in.
think it was designed to do.
Basically, the long and short of it is they said, from now on in this country,
Maybe if it was designed to.
every single
rehabilitate,
person
Probably not.
in
I think
every
it
state
depends on,
that is charged with a
what
crime
it
or
was designed to do. It's
incarceration
designed to keep
is
people as a
possible
Public safety, I think sometimes we do
will
have
be
to
given an
incarcerate
attorney.
people as an issue of
The
public
state
safety,
will
so I think
supply
that
an
it-
attorney for every citizen so accused. When this
So-
decision came out, immediately over 2,000 people were released from prison in Florida alone. Thousands were
Sitting on a
released
bench and the
throughout the
probation
country
officer
for the
says-
same thing.
Johnny Smith is here. He
So-
violated his probation.
Any good defense
Tested
lawyer, any
positive on
defense
the-
lawyer
on the
that
urine.
works and takes cases,
I want him to go to jail.
they get cases sometimes that are horrible,
On just
terrible.
that
Yeah,
hypothetical.
you wonder
yes.
how a human being can treat other human beings that way.
6 months later, Theo comes back in
If
and
we go
says,
back
Johnny
in time,
Jones,
just in this
wants to know the
Commonwealth, and we add up
I want him to go to jail.
and bring in the cases of every human being that
heroin
committed
addict.
an atrocious
I want him to
crime,
go to jail.
it would, the files
Judge
would probably
Williams gonna
fill
do
this
now?
room.
Again, probably not. It's been 6 months.
So,
It sounds like.
Even though she
elapsed,
represented
it
her
sounds like he-
and she
unless
did her
it's
best,
been brought
that's what her
for
job
a warrant
was.
Or something else. It sounds like he's been.
That's what
that's
she
the only
was
one.
there
More
for.
than
That's
one.
the oath she took as an attorney.
What about the third time?
And the judge
I need to know a little bit
who
more.
made
Probably
the,
not, but I don't know.
made the
Are there
sentence
any other
after the
issues
lawyers and the
that would
that's
warrant-
the only
DAs
issue.
had their say and
No other
requested
issue.
for the judge.
He's being
I think
into
the
a cup.
Commonwealth requested
Tested
10 years
positive,
in that
period.
case. And, this nominee requested
He's got a heroin
3 to
addiction.
5.
You think jail?
Judge
is
Tom
appropriate for
Dreschler,
people
who
with
has
an
had
addiction?
many years as a criminal attorney before he was on the
Why
bench,
are we, the royal we? why are we
decided the
putting
case
people in
called
jail?
for a 5 to 7
I
state
think
prison.
when it intersects with a crime.
So I guess we can,
No, just
we can
this.
blame
Leave it
him
to
too,
this
because
judge.
he's the one that put the final
I've been in
sentence in
courts where
effect.
those happens.
I'm not concerned with
Right.
what the
not
parole
working.
office did or Department of Corrections.
We don't put people
do
in
what
jail
they
if they
do.
relapse from smoking.
The fact of the matter is, and the
Right.
issue here for this nominee,
This is a
Is
medical
whether or not
condition.
she's
Everybody that
qualified
sat
to
there,
be a
everybody that
judge.
comes in here says that.
I agree.
What other medical
you know,
conditions?
when
do
a
we
judge
treat with
gets a
jail?
case like this and it goes to a jury, he will explain to the jury and order the
I
jury
don't know, well, then,
and not try this
used to be
case
a
on
crime, you know,
emotions.
to be drunk in the Commonwealth.
You've got to separate yourself as a juror from these
48
terrible
or something, I
emotions you
forget
might
how
have.
many days on
You
the
got to leave
police
them
station.
outside the
But you
courtroom.
could arrest somebody just for being drunk.
But to me, a
Yeah,
lawyer
that's-
that takes a
somebody
case
said,
like this,
That's not good. They're addicted
and I didn't
to
see,
alcohol.
I
They
hear
shouldn't
the
be
statement
charged with
from my sister counselor and from
Not
others
so
in the court,
other
court. So-and-so didn't show remorse. I don't know what that means in our court system.
Do you think?
I've
Somebody
been
on
15
probation.
times, maybe 16,000 times in
supervised.
front of judges in my
I
career.
think it depends on the case.
And I've heard that
and,
complaint. The defendant isn't
center
showing
calls.
any emotion. He's not showing any remorse.
I gotta tell you.
Most of the time, I tell a defendant not to show any emotion because there's people in the courtroom on both sides and they can get then riled up and involved in it. This is a woman who, for all intents and purposes, probably indicated this crime was a terrible crime.
Probation officer.
Who would
said,
be
"I'm
in
gonna ask for
favor
jail
of this
time
crime?
because you
Who
guys
would
won't
talk
do
good about this
your
crime?
best."
Nobody would.
I said, okay.
Everybody would have a
So
feeling
the
about
case.
this case and not a
First
good
case I
one.
got called.
So
Judge
because
said,
she didn't
"No,
show
don't
remorse
admit." I said,
here,
"No, Judge, I'd like probation officer to get on the stand. You get on the stand, the file. is about
I
to
think
say."
it's a criticism. The guy had paid his
That is
probation
warranted.
supervision fee up. It was a 4-year probation.
we
In this business, do these cases and
Only a
we
year
move
and a
on
half.
to other cases. Years go
I
by.
said to the probation officer,
And you
"Can you open your
move on
file
and
and
you do
tell
other
me
cases.
supervision you've
You
given
don't
this
lose your
man?"
feeling for the case you had that was
He didn't
terrible,
open the file. He said, "I haven't given him any."
but you move on.
So
I think
gonna
it's,
give him back his money?
I think it's
Paid for supervision?
somewhat disappointing that
I said,
she would be criticized for doing exactly
he
what
said
she is
periods
supposed
of
to
being
do.
clean. 3 or
And it
4
takes
months.
courage to stand up in a
Open your
courtroom next
file.
to somebody
Did you
that's
call him
accused of
and
these
tell him he was doing a
crimes.
good job?
A lot of courage.
No.
I've
Did you
been in
ever
courtrooms where
encourage
there's
him
50 or
by
60
saying,
people
"If I can help
sitting
you,
behind
please,
me
just
with
let
a
me know."
client
No.
next to me that I don't even like. And everybody in that courtroom hates that individual.
And
And most of them probably hate me for sitting there with
in
him.
addition to
making
that,
an
I said, my
argument.
client has been here.
But that's
4
what our
times
system is.
in the last 3 weeks.
That's what John Adams did when
On
he
your order.
defended the captain of the militia, British
Because
militia,
of it,
who shot the
Been
citizens of
laid off from his
Boston,
job.
known as the
Here's the letter
Boston
from
Massacre.
the lawyer.
He was vilified in the newspapers
So I
by
said,
neighbors.
"You've got your job."
But he says, that's my job as a lawyer
He
to do
doesn't,
that.
because you told him to come in here 3 times.
You got a not guilty for that captain. Then he was hired by one of the soldiers, 2 soldiers he represented. And both of those were found guilty.
Well,
In those days, when
Are
you
you
were
gonna
found
be
guilty,
on
if you weren't a
fees and
citizen of
fines?
the common, of the United States, you were given the choice of
I
either
think
going
there
to
are too many
prison or
of
going
them.
back to
I
your
don't. I
country.
think that a lot of times people
So
are.
I take my lead from
for
John
sometimes that's the only
Adams.
thing
I
keeping
take it from
probation
other
open.
great lawyers,
So I
Clarence
don't
Darrow,
recommend,
who represented
have
scores
some
of people
incarcerate
that
somebody for
committed
just fines
atrocious
or
crimes.
Just keep a case open and
It's-
suspend it, extend it just.
The
with
crime
we're
itself,
talking about when you impose a
the
sentence.
crime itself
The lawyer says to you, "I'd
is
ask you to
immaterial
waive
to the representation
fees and fines."
of the person charged with that crime.
What are you gonna do?
In this country,
Statement.
if Adolf Hitler was here and charged with a crime, he would have gotten a lawyer,
You shouldn't.
because
imposing
that's what
fines
makes
on
our
yourself
country
somewhere
better
else.
than most.
You're not gonna be
That's
like
what
some
makes our
judges I
judicial
know that
system
actually think
my
they're working
opinion,
for
the best in the
Department of
world.
Revenue rather than being a
So
judge.
I'm going to be proud to vote for this nominee.
Most
and I
people
give her
come in
a
the
lot of
Springfield
credit for
District
having
Court
the
don't have a
courage
lot of money.
to take difficult cases.
Paying a fee or a
Uh,
fine. is a
Before
lot
we,
than-
before we vote, I would just like to say that this nominee,
Excuse me, may I
I
be
think it
recognized?
odd that we chase
Councilman
around
Councilor
people
Kennedy?
for not paying
Thank you.
$100
Councilor Kennedy.
bucks, and you get warrants. and you
Councilman
have to have
Jubilo and I
police
don't
bring
always
them in,
agree,
and
but
you
I
go to
agree
judge.
with them 1,000%.
Talk about a
in
waste of
particular
time and
instance.
effort.
Both Councilor Jubilo
So
and
I'd
I,
ask
as
you to
most
think
of you
about
know, spend a
waiving
lot of time in
fees
court.
and fines.
These are the people in the
Some of
Commonwealth that
them
are
have
paying for
committed
all of
or
our
accused of
some
horrific crimes.
government
We have an
jobs.
obligation to represent them to the best of our ability.
Uh,
We have,
Have you ever,
we have a code of
you
professional
know about
conduct
dangerousness
that
hearings?
requires us to
Do
zealously
you think the
represent our
prosecutors use
clients.
those too much?
If Attorney McNeil had adopted the
Sometimes.
position that
Yeah,
Counsel
I agree
Devaney is
sometimes, yeah.
advocating,
It seems
she
to
shouldn't
be
be up for
getting to be
judgeship.
more and more now.
She should be up before the Board of Bar
We're seeing,
Overseers
definitely
being
seeing an
disciplined.
increase in,
Because we're
in,
obligated to
requests for
represent
dangerous
everybody
hearings.
to the best of our ability.
So I
And
hope you're not
that's
going to be a
what
judge
she
that just rubber
did.
stamps all these
Now, I want to
dangerousness
set the
hearings.
record straight on one
People
thing.
in jail.
People keep
No.
talking about a 3 to 6
Absolutely
year
not.
sentence. That was the
Listen to the
original
evidence and
recommendation.
make
After
determinations
reviewing the
based on
guidelines,
What do you,
determining
what do
that
you
the
think of
appropriate
school zone
guideline was 5
violations
to
of drug
7.
cases?
Attorney
I
McNeil
remember
amended her
having
recommendation
those
and
as a
recommended
prosecutor.
5
We
to
had way
7
too many of them.
that was
I agree
adopted
with the
by
change in
Judge
the law.
Kressler.
We don't
Nobody
actually,
is
in
saying
Springfield,
that
we
this
don't see a
crime
lot of
wasn't
those
horrific.
anymore.
It was committed by a
I
woman
think that
who had a
they,
history of
and
mental
in
illness going
Springfield,
back
you
to the
couldn't
time she
go
was
anywhere
12 years
without
old, which
being
was
near
a
a school.
significant mitigating
So
factor
they
in terms
were
of
entirely
determining
free.
what was an appropriate sentence.
So
Attorney McNeil
you
did
said to me
exactly what
back
she was
a
supposed to
few
do. She should not be
minutes ago,
criticized for
you
it.
know,
She should be
what could I
commended
do
for
about
it.
a certain
Thank
topic?
you.
In Boston,
We have
the
a
BMC
motion
school
and
zone.
a second. We may
There's no
commence
place
the
in
roll
Boston
call.
you cannot be in the school.
I had one more comment
We
about
have, we
that.
I've had many cases
we have
where
a
the
motion
police
and
have
a
enticed the
second,
guy
and we may
into a
commence the
school
roll.
zone
Council
to
Jubinville,
sell him yes, pot, and then
Council
arrest him from the
Dabini?
school zone.
No.
But in
Council Ianella,
Boston,
Yes.
there were a significant amount
Council
of
Duff?
judges
Yes.
that would
Council Kennedy?
refuse
Yes.
Council Hurley,
and put the
I
school
concur
zone.
with what
The
Counselor
judges would say to
Kennedy
the defense lawyer,
and
try
Counselor
it, try the
Jubinville said
case. They would find the
100%.
guy not guilty of that.
And
Because it
Counselor
was so
Devaney
unfair.
is absolutely
So
wrong.
there are things you
My
can do as a
vote is
judge to
yes.
get around unfair statutes.
Burr,
I concur with Councilor Hurley. I'm a yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for your
tell me what you think. the
comments
term
today,
judge shopping
for your
means.
discussion.
I think it
I
means,
appreciate that. I know you have a
being
hearing
aware
underway.
of
That
what
concludes
judge
our
is sitting
business today.
when,
We're going
and
to take, as far as the hearing is
attempting to
concerned, it's now
get your case in front of
12:37.
that
We will
judge
come
to
back into session at 1 o'clock.
favorable to your
Thank
position
you.
and to your case.
What do you think of that?
I think any judge, any attorney who is in any court, it does it and should do it. I think it's good legal practice to try and do the best you can for your client. It's advocating for your client.
So if I come out to Springfield and Judge Williams sitting, and I say to an assistant clerk or the clerk, hey, can you get me before another judge, you're not going to be offended?
I won't be offended as an assistant, I don't know if the assistant clerk would do it, but I wouldn't be offended if someone asked me.
No. So I think of this, of that term.
Mhm.
I don't think it really exists. I'll tell you why. Yesterday, I got a trial date and on the Zoom.
Mhm.
It's in December. I have no idea who's sitting in that particular court in December. When I get there for trial, it's a jury waive trial, but if I get there and it's a judge who I know has never said not guilty in his entire life, I'm not going to jury waive it, right?
Right.
So when they say, judge shopping, I don't know who I'm getting when I show up. And even if I see the schedule, the 30-day schedule, and Judge Williams is sitting on this day, and I go, she's the one I want to get. When I show up that day, you may not be in the trial session.
That's right.
In fact, you may be on vacation in Bermuda or somewhere.
Exactly.
So I think the term judge shopping is misused in that regard. What do you think about it's on for jury trial and the defense lawyer jury waives? You going to allow them to do that?
Yes.
Okay. What if somebody has signed a waiver of rights before the trial,
Mhm.
and they get to your session, and a particular lawyer says, well, I think I better have a jury. He says, I want to have a jury now. Are you going to say, no, you've already signed that, so you lose the right to a jury?
No, I would allow them to go jury.
There are some cases where that is not done. I was in the BMC the other day, and the DA said to me, you're here for trial. I said, yeah. He said, well, did you sign a jury waiver? I said, no. I don't know who I'm getting. I didn't sign anything. Oh, he said, we're having lawyers sign. I said, the DA's office is having lawyers sign jury waivers? I said, no. And the judge, who was a pretty good judge, asked me about it, and I said, well, Judge, 5 Supreme Judicial Court judges in this Commonwealth sat in the seat you're in right now and said it would be ineffective assistance of counsel and malpractice for any lawyer to waive a defendant's rights before they knew what judge was sitting on their case. They said that from your chair. So I say to judges, I don't want to commit malpractice. You know what an Alford plea is?
I do, yes.
What is it?
An admission to sufficient facts.
What else?
Sufficient facts that if the Commonwealth's case as presented, I would find the defendant guilty. Be enough to find the defendant guilty.
Okay, but you know the difference between a regular plea and an Alford plea?
Usually, my understanding with an Alford plea, someone doesn't recall the events or has no recollection of it, so is admitting that.
Well, you're close.
Okay, tell me then.
But you're not 100%.
Okay, I'm ready.
Alford plea comes from Alford versus North Carolina's case. So when you do a plea, you're the clerk, you're there, and the judge does the plea.
Yes.
And then he says, I want you to listen to what the DA has to say, and they read the facts of a case.
Right.
And then judges turn to the defendant and say, is that basically what happened?
Right.
And they say yes. Well, an Alford plea, it's exactly the same, except that question isn't asked of the defendant. Do you agree with that, or is that what happened, or did you do that? That question isn't answered. So the same sentence is imposed, same probation, whatever it is, fees, fines, whatever, but that question isn't asked. And did you ever see any Alford pleas?
Yes, I've seen some of those.
Would you be a judge that would allow them in certain cases?
Yes.
They're beneficial in this sense. Sometimes people get charged with a crime, first offense, and they're facing jail time if they try it and lose. So they wish not to run that risk, but they maintain that they're innocent. And the studies say about 15 to 20% of people that get found guilty are innocent or didn't do the crime. Jurors get it wrong that much time. But the other thing is, unlike the probate law, which many years ago, before you were around, one of the only ways to get divorced was to claim cruel and abusive treatment by your spouse. Usually it was a wife saying cruel and abusive, and the judge would ask her questions. How's your health before you got married? Good. And how is it now? It's narrow. It's terrible. How's your anxiety level? Oh, it's worse now than ever because I've been with him. And then you go through this whole colloquy. And probably 90% of the cases, it was all made up. But it was the only way to get divorced without claiming adultery or imprisonment or alcoholism. So the judge knew the person was probably committing perjury. The lawyers knew they were committing perjury. And the legislature finally said, well, why do we make people commit perjury to get divorced? So they instituted no fault. So you don't have to say anything anymore. But in our criminal system, if you are innocent of the crime you're charged with, you didn't commit it, and it's a serious crime, you face a tough choice. Going to trial, losing, and going to jail. Or making an admission to something you didn't do so you don't go to jail. So sometimes an Alford plea is a good way to resolve the case. So the client says, I'm not going to say I did it. Okay, you don't have to. We'll do an Alford plea. It's agreed that you'll get probation and you won't face a jail time. So to me, it helps get rid of a case, and you're getting the same penalty. It's not going to matter. So anyway, that's the deal on that. So I hear a lot from people sitting where you're sitting that they're going to follow the law. Did you ever hear that?
I do, yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, I think, depending on, I think.
As a judge, I mean.
As a judge is going to follow the law.
Yeah,
Well, I think you have to follow the law.
I don't know what that means.
I think
What does it mean?
it means, I mean, it's a very broad statement, but I think to me, it means that I am going to ensure that I am making decisions that fall within the case law, the applicable case law, making decisions on motions, things like that, that it involves the applicable case law, that falls within the statutes, that I'm not just going to ignore the law, ignore case law and statute that applies to a case.
You ever been to the appeals court?
No.
Okay, well, there's 3 judges that sit on a panel. They listen to the evidence. Sometimes it's 2 judges finding one way, 1 judge the other, or the Supreme Judicial Court. Maybe 4 judges and 3 against, right? Which ones aren't following the law then?
Well, I agree with you. It depends. It could be their interpretation of the law.
Well, isn't that what judges do every day?
Exactly, interpreting the law and interpreting.
And you could have a case in one session where a judge interprets the law this way and go right next door and have the same case and a judge has a different interpretation.
Absolutely.
So when they come here and say, well, I'm going to follow the law, I say, you're going to interpret the law.
That's right.
If you were following the law and every judge followed the law, there'd be no appeals courts. We wouldn't need them, right?
Right.
So anyway, okay, I'm done. I appreciate you putting up with me here, and again, you've had good people speaking on your behalf, and a letter from Bobby Santinello, very important to me.
Thank you so much.
Joe Franco told me that he's had nothing but good experiences with you,
I appreciate that.
so I appreciate it. But thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have questions?
Are you calling on me?
Counselor Devaney?
Thank you. Hi, nice
Hi.
to see you again.
Nice to see you as
It was
well.
really a pleasure, and where this was so fast, it's amazing. You got your family and you got your people to speak for you. You were amazing.
Thank you so much.
And I enjoyed meeting your mother and you. That was a great thing. I apologize for that, how you had to rush, because on the application, it asks you to present your application within, within, I don't know, 6 days or something, isn't it? And you were told one day, and it was even, I don't think it was even maybe 6 days you had, but it was anyway, it wasn't sufficient, but you did it. And in that time, we even had to meet on a Sunday because this came up so fast, which I think we should go by what it says, because, you're supposed to give all your information within so many days, and it's not even within that time. But so thank you. I appreciate that. Now tell me, you went before the JNC. How many lawyers were there?
I think it was over Zoom, and it was very hard to keep track of, but I think I had about 8 or 9.
9.
I think it was 9.
It was 21. With this, with Mr. Dacier, he does it differently, and it's not pleasing to me, because I think that all of the people who are voting for the nominee, all those attorneys that are appointed by the governor, should be at that hearing asking you questions. And how many did you say were there?
I think it was 9.
Yeah,
I
9.
said it was
9.
Zoom,
So, the majority are voting for someone they never met. That's not the way it should be. That's not your problem. I keep saying it, but it doesn't go anywhere. And I've been here a while, and it wasn't done this way, So anyway, but it was a pleasure meeting you and your mother. It was great. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
The thing is, my colleague has asked a lot of questions. I was crossing them out as he asked. One of the things that, that we see that is so different than someone 40 years ago serving is the drug problem. And it's real, and it's not going away. So you have been involved in that, in drug cases, and you've made recommendations. See, my thing is that, we don't have the facilities. And, you know, what do we got? We got something in Framingham, I think, and there's only a few. And it doesn't meet the needs of people. And in the last 2 years, I've had two friends, each had a son that overdosed on heroin and died. So I know personally what it does. So, but the other thing is, you have represented people who have a drug problem too.
I would say I only prosecuted drug cases. When I was in private practice, the defense cases I had did not involve the allegation of.
Yeah. Well, we don't have pads around here anymore, which is, to me, is a disgrace. I keep asking for them. And we had a pad maybe, oh gosh, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago. And it broke my heart. This goes back to a young man who was in high school. He was 17. And on his way to school, an older friend stopped him and said, "Would you sell these bags of marijuana?" And so, you know, he's a kid, he took them, and he said they're $25 a bag. So he went into the school and he sold one bag. And when he asked another boy, that boy went to the principal and told on him. So they found them in the locker. So, so he did time, and he lost out on the best years of his life, proms and maybe a scholarship to go to college, sports, all of that. And so when he got out, fortunately, he got a job as a custodian. So during the time he was out, he got cancer, he lost a leg, he's gone through a lot of physical things. And I think how sad that there couldn't have been any leeway for this young man, never had been involved in any kind of things like this. And he, you know, he wanted to do a favor for an older friend, and that's what it was. He didn't know. And so, you know, that was really heart-wrenching, because the other thing is the school is closed. And so I don't know what he's going out to get. And, you know, he has a record. So, you know, those are the things I look at, and I just say, you know, there's got to be, you know, some intervention. There's got to be more teaching about drugs so that a young fella doesn't have to have, you know, a full sentence that he has to serve, you know. But having said that, now, so the thing is, you are, right now, you are are you a clerk magistrate?
Assistant
Okay,
clerk
and you were
magistrate.
assistant?
I am an
You are
assistant.
assistant?
Yes, I'm an assistant
Okay,
clerk magistrate.
so in your courthouse, how many clerk magistrates do they have?
That's a good question. We're down a few, and my boss is watching, so I better get this right. So I think I think we have 7 at the
Yeah,
moment.
and so, yeah, and so clerk magistrates, how many?
Assistant clerk. We only have 1 clerk magistrate, and that's Mr.
Wow.
Gay.
Yeah.
And we have assistant.
Is that the norm for, you know, a courthouse that big, or what?
I can tell you that we are down, and based on the work that we're doing, I think our assistant clerks are doing superhuman work with the amount of cases that we have coming through the Springfield District Court.
Okay. So you were asked in your questionnaire to list the things that you thought were important in court, and there was a couple of them that you really didn't direct your answer to. Do you remember that question? Oh, okay. Well, I'll let that go. So, okay, so how many criminal cases have you had?
I would say that I've had criminal cases about over 50. Excuse me, criminal cases. I handled a caseload as a prosecutor of about 300 cases. So I can't count.
So you're involved in the trial from beginning to
I,
end?
as a prosecutor, started at arraignment, went to pretrial and trial. It was at my caseload at any given time was 300 cases. So countless. I can't tell you how many cases I've handled, but quite a few.
So has it increased as you've changed your position?
I don't think, no, I don't handle, it depends on the session, so I don't have like a set caseload, but our average pretrial session is supposed to be 75 and usually borders up against 90, 95 cases. And arraignments, we probably usually probably have, if you factor in walk-in on warrants and then summons and then just arraignments, you're probably looking at over 100 cases a day there. So it depends, but it depends on every session is a lot of cases.
I have to tell you, I'm disappointed in your answers because I like to really get into the cases and everything, and there really wasn't descriptions of the, the cases that you were involved. Do you see that?
Yes. we do.
Yeah, that, so that's some kind of, space in this for me to evaluate. I only know, I like to know the rest of the story, So anyway, so you have applied 3 times.
I applied,
In all the same year, 2017. So tell me, do you think you were ready then?
I think I have gained, I think I'm more ready now. I think that having more experience as a person in life and experience as an assistant clerk in the different sessions has better prepared me. So I definitely feel more prepared now than I did when I applied then.
Right. So in those, so were you interviewed for those 3 positions?
I was interviewed, I applied once and there were 3 vacancies, but I had an interview yet.
Okay. So so what do you think is the biggest challenge now for you if you are a judge in our court system?
I think the challenge is balancing the administration of justice with doing the substantive work, meaning that, there's pressure to get cases moving, to finish the day, get the lockup empty. But you also have to give each person a fair opportunity to be heard to make sure that the case is appropriately addressed with attention, decency, respect, and compassion. So I think there's the tension just to make sure that you're not rushing through the day just to get the work done, but really making sure that people have the opportunity to be heard that they deserve.
With this, this problem that we're living through, and courts are closed, and it's, they're not doing all the work that they would normally do. Do you see that this workload is going to be addressed? Because I know in one of them, they have, I'm trying to think, they have something like 800 cases that haven't been, what's going to happen? I mean, how are they going to address this?
We're doing our, we're higher pay grade than me, but we're doing our best to address the backlog, but it definitely is a challenge. It's a challenge to try to address that backlog, getting more, and keeping people safe. We want to continue to keep the public safe and everything, but it is definitely a challenge. I think it will take a long time before we catch up.
Now, in your position, how are your responsibilities different than the position you held previously at the courthouse?
So as an assistant clerk magistrate, I'm impartial. I have administrative duties, so I keep the official docket for the court. I run the sessions where I need to run the sessions, make sure things are happening smoothly as best I can. I also have substantive duties, so I review criminal applications to make probable cause determinations. I review applications for search warrants. I preside over small claims sessions, over the civil motor vehicle infraction sessions, the criminal show cause sessions. So that's a little different. So I'm not advocating for one position as a prosecutor. I was advocating for the position on behalf of the Commonwealth. And so now in my position, I'm an impartial person in the court doing that work.
What is your proudest outcome of all the cases that you've seen?
I think that's a good question. I'm personally proud of my work on adoption of Anisha. I'm proud of that work because it was something I'd never done before, which was an appeal of the decision of DCF to terminate parental rights. And there was a very quick turnaround time. They asked for a volunteer. I volunteered. I'd never done an appellate case before. Wrote the brief, and it was a novel issue of jurisdiction, which I which I was able to do in a short period of time, and really proud of that work personally. But I would say some of the cases I'm most proud of as a prosecutor cases, there are two bullying cases that really come to mind. And one, in all honesty, I null prossed, and I'm proud of that work because a lot of times I think lawyers get so consumed with a win that they forget that these cases involved individuals. And this was a case where a young woman was being bullied, and because she allegedly had some contact with one of the girl's boyfriends. And so they were beating her up, they were harassing at school. And my case involved an assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and it was a very strong case, and the case was ready to go to trial. And in preparing the case, I learned that there was a Superior Court case with the same victim. It was a mayhem case. And one of the girls in the group had disfigured her by cutting her face. And that case ultimately ended up in a jail sentence for that individual. And when I called the Superior Court prosecutor to talk about my case, she said to me, I think you should consider null prossing the case. She said, I'm not telling you what to do, but I think you might want to consider null prossing the case. And it really surprised me. And I said, well, why do you think that? She said, well, I will tell you that this case upstairs has been a nightmare because the defendant has been dragging the case out as long as possible just to make this girl's life miserable. And whatever win you get in district court is going to pale in comparison to what she's going through. It's really framed for me what's important. And so ultimately, I null prossed that case because it's, remembering what the cases are about and about people.
Well, I was very impressed with your personal life and your dad, and he and how he wanted. Well, why don't you tell a story instead of me? I was very impressed with it.
My dad is, he grew up he was born in 1943 in New Fall, Alabama, a child of the South, and little boys with his race didn't become engineers, which is what he wanted to be. And I'm really proud that he didn't let anything stop him. He was committed to his goals and worked wherever he could. He worked in the Navy, worked on the auto line, knowing that one day he would meet his goal. And so he was the first in his family to attend and complete college, and became an engineer. And he worked for digital, and he worked for Quantum Corporation, and he was a world-renowned resource in this profession. And I'm really proud of his example. And he was also, one of the things he taught me was that the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. So he was obsessed with Napoleon and used to read biographies, but he always makes sure to read 2 or 3 at a time because he felt like the truth was somewhere in the middle, that everyone has kind of a little bit of bias. But I'm really proud of him and obviously miss him every day.
Well, he wasn't told to, to go that road, was he?
No,
Was he told?
To become, he said he could be a cook or a janitor.
Right. Well, who I think of? I think of Justice Island. And when he was in school, the teacher told him that you'll make a great mechanic. One of the greatest justice we've had in Massachusetts. So God bless your dad. That is something. And I was very impressed with that. So now in your experience, out of all the positions you've had, what position do you think has given you the best experience to be a judge?
Honestly, I think my work as an assistant clerk magistrate has prepared me. I think that everything I have to say that every job I've had up to this point has gotten to me to here. So my trial experience at the district attorney's office is invaluable. What I learned there, getting up on my feet, trying a case at a moment's notice, I don't know if I can even separate them. I will say that as an assistant clerk in the Springfield District Court, you know who you are. When everything falls apart, you know what your temperament is, you know how you treat people, you know how to adapt to any situation. So I think that as an assistant clerk, the skills of being able to manage everything that happens in a courtroom and to be able to think outside of the box and be innovative, that has come from that position. But everything that I've had, every step I've made in my career has been important to get me to this point.
Well, I was impressed in your, reading about the adoption of Anisha, And thank God that had a happy ending. So you can tell us about that. And I was just wondering what happened to the other siblings. So why don't you?
Well, I don't know what happened to the other siblings because the mother in that case had lost previous children and because had her prior children her parental rights had been terminated and children had died in her custody previously. So I was aware of that information. And so
Because give the reason.
they were allegedly she was drug addicted and the children were also drug addicted. But in this case, the child was born in the Commonwealth, and she'd taken the child to I believe New Hampshire and then Texas, and then had made arrangements for a family friend to adopt the child in the Caribbean. So the judge in that case in Massachusetts ultimately terminated parental rights, and the argument was that he didn't have jurisdiction to do so, and that number one, that the right shouldn't have been terminated, and that he didn't have jurisdiction.
No, that was a beautiful story. I thought about the siblings, but we don't know, right, what happened. So, what do you think for you personally is going to be the biggest challenge in this position?
I think, there's definitely a shift from being an assistant clerk to being a judge. You're making much tougher decisions. You have to consider that you're affecting lives and families and communities. And so I think that's an awesome responsibility.
When you look back at the cases you've had, what is the most that you look back and you're just so proud of that outcome? Is there one that stands out?
Proud of all my cases, honestly. Even the ones I didn't win. I'm proud of all of the cases because I learned something from every one of them. I'm proud of, I had a bullying case where a young man was just he was walking around a track and someone just sucker punched him and ended up breaking the orbital bone in his face, and was able to give him some peace of mind in that case. So but every case that I've had are really important to me, even the ones where, I lost, and sometimes I should have lost, so those all, I mean, a great deal to me.
Right. Well, my colleague has asked a lot of questions that I asked. I kept crossing them out as he asked them, but in more that he asked. But no, I was very impressed with you, and I'm just wondering, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge now, where there all these cases are, piling up? How are we going to, get them through and do the right thing and give it time?
No, I think that you've identified the biggest challenge is trying to get that backlog of cases seen. I think so.
Well, I have to tell you, it was a pleasure meeting you and your mom. It was great. And to take a Sunday to do that because it was so rushed, and I apologize for that. I had nothing to do with it, but it was a pleasure. So what do you think for you is going to be the biggest learning curve that you're going to go through to be a judge with your experience?
I think that although I've had civil experience, I'd like to, I think that I sit more in criminal sessions, so I think that I'm sure I have a lot to learn.
And I'm very pleased about your contributions. So that means a lot to me because you're coming on your own and on your own merits. And this is how I wish they all were, because you should come on your own merits, not buying it, So I thank you and, for all your time. Sunday, it was really a pleasure to meet you and your mom. And I wish you all good luck and thank you all for coming. This was great that you had this many people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I believe all the counselors have asked all the questions that they want. I just have about 2 hours worth of questions, Danielle.
I'm ready.
Okay. Where are you going to take these poor people to lunch? They've been sitting here all day.
I think they have, I have the pescatarian in the family, I think, wants some fish. So we'll go to, I think we're going to go to Center Square.
Oh, there you go. Is your mom, would your mom answer a question for me?
Yes.
Okay. You can-
Yes, Councillor Hurley.
How proud are you of your daughter?
I am very, very proud of her. I know that if her dad was here, I know that he also would be proud and that he is just rejoicing. And she has worked hard, and she's a woman of substance and integrity, and we are proud of her and love her. And thank you for all the work and all the hard work that you all have done in the support.
Thank you. So I really don't have any questions. As I said before, Danielle, Judge Payne has been your biggest cheerleader for a long time. And when you applied back in 17, basically you were just too young. But I think that the time that you've had has allowed you to grow more, to appreciate more, and to learn more. And being a judge is a learning process too. You'll have a mentor judge. You'll be able to rely on Survival Guide and a lot of the different books and what have you. It's just been a long journey for you, but you're going to continue to succeed. Your grace and cool under pressure has been tested time and time again, being a clerk in the Springfield District Court. I can recall days when I had 120 pretrial conferences to go through in courtroom 2. So you'll do a great job. My advice is get a robe, because from my count, you're going to get voted in next week. So congratulations, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Williams, and thank you for being here. This hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.